Hey guys, tonight we embark on the complete saga of the Rebel Alliance, the extraordinary story of how a handful of senators, smugglers, and dreamers grew into the force that toppled the most powerful empire the galaxy had ever known. From secret meetings in marble halls to the forests of Endor, their journey is one of sacrifice, hope, and the unbreakable bonds forged in the crucible of war. So before you settle in for this epic journey, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these galactic tales I share. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the galaxy. It's always amazing to see fellow rebels tuning in from across the world. Now dim the lights, get comfortable under your covers, and let's drift into this legendary chronicle together. Long ago, in the dying days of the Republic, a single encrypted transmission crackled through the void of space. 3 words that would echo across the stars for generations. There is another. But this message was not the beginning of our tale, nor its end. It was merely one thread in a tapestry, woven from countless acts of quiet defiance, each small rebellion building towards something magnificent. In the highest towers of Coruscant, Senator Bail Organa stood before a window overlooking the endless cityscape, his reflection ghost-like against the transparistile. In his hand, a holocron pulsed with urgent light, containing intelligence that would either save the galaxy or doom them all. The message within spoke of a weapon so terrible it could destroy entire worlds, but also of a weakness, a fatal flaw deliberately hidden within its design. But before we witness that climactic moment, we must journey back to where it all began, to the shadows between marble pillars where democracy drew its final breath, and the first whispers of rebellion took root in hearts that refused to surrender hope. The ancient chronicles tell us that some battles are won not with lightsabers or starfighters, but with the simple courage to say no when the galaxy demands silence. This is their story. 22 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Imperial Senate stood as a monument to democracy's dying breath. Within its soaring chambers of polished marble and gleaming metal, the last representatives of 1,000 worlds gathered each day to perform the elaborate theater of governance, while real power rested in the iron grip of Emperor Palpatine. You walk these corridors as a silent witness to history, observing the subtle dance of rebellion taking shape in whispered conversations and meaningful glances. The air carries the mingled sense of exotic perfumes from distant worlds, but beneath the luxury lingers something else entirely, the acrid taste of fear that no amount of wealth can mask. Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan moves through these halls with the measured grace of a man who has spent decades navigating political storms. His kind eyes, framed by graying temples, search constantly for allies among the sea of senators who have either embraced the new imperial order or learned to hide their dissent behind carefully constructed masks. Today, he carries himself differently, shoulders squared against a burden that grows heavier with each passing vote that strips away another freedom. The senator from Chandrila, Mon Mothma, represents everything the Republic once aspired to become. Her voice, clear and unwavering in the old days of open debate, now speaks in careful code, each word chosen not just for its meaning, but for its ability to plant seeds of resistance in receptive minds. She has learned the delicate art of saying one thing while meaning another, of expressing loyalty to the Emperor while nurturing the flames of rebellion. These two form the beating heart of what will become something far greater than either dares imagine. In the quiet moments between public sessions, they gather with others who share their vision, senators whose worlds remember the taste of freedom and refuse to let that memory die. They speak of justice delayed but not abandoned, of liberty that may bend but will never break. In the outer corridors, beyond the reach of imperial surveillance, other figures move with equal purpose but greater stealth. Former military officers who served the Republic with honor find themselves questioning orders that once would have been followed without hesitation. Clone commanders bred for loyalty but not for blind obedience begin to ask uncomfortable questions about the new regime they are ordered to enforce. The whispers speak of a Jedi who survived the Great Purge, living now under an assumed identity while gathering intelligence on Imperial activities. Tales circulate of a young woman from Naboo, whose hatred for the Emperor burns with the intensity of personal loss. And from the Outer Rim territories, reports filter through of entire systems whose planetary militias refuse Imperial integration, choosing instead to fade into the wilderness and wait for a chance to strike back. But perhaps most intriguingly, there are events that defy simple explanation. Imperial defectors, whose changes of heart seem too perfectly timed, rescue missions that succeed against impossible odds, intelligence that finds its way to resistance cells with uncanny precision, as if guided by an invisible hand that ensures the right information reaches the right people at exactly the right moment. The Force, that mystical energy field the Emperor has declared nothing more than primitive superstition, seems to pulse through these early days with particular intensity. Those few who remain sensitive to its currents speak of disturbances in the cosmic balance, of visions showing possible futures where darkness reigns eternal across the stars. Yet they also dream of hope emerging from the most unexpected places, of a new generation that will rise to challenge the Empire when the time is right. In these hallowed chambers where democracy gasps its final breaths, you can feel destiny settling upon ordinary individuals who will soon make extraordinary choices. Senators don their ceremonial robes each morning, never knowing which conversation might mark them as traitors, which vote might sign their own death warrant. Yet there is something beautiful in their quiet defiance, something noble in their refusal to let hope die without a fight. They move through their days with the knowledge that they are living through a pivotal moment in galactic history, that future generations will judge them not by their success or failure, but by their willingness to stand against tyranny when standing required the greatest courage. The weight of this responsibility shows in their faces, in the careful way they choose their words, in the meaningful glances exchanged across crowded chambers. As the twin suns of Coruscant set beyond the endless cityscape, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, these early rebels gather in secret to plan their next moves. They know the Empire grows stronger with each passing day, its grip tightening around systems that once knew freedom. But they also know that somewhere in the vast galaxy, others share their dream of liberation. The rebellion begins not with grand proclamations or dramatic gestures, but with the simple decision to remember what was lost and to believe it can be found again. In the shadows between marble pillars, hope takes root in hearts that refuse to surrender to despair. The decision comes quietly, without fanfare or dramatic speeches, in the privacy of Bail Organa's secure chambers, away from the ever-watchful eyes of Imperial intelligence. 3 senators make a choice that will reshape the galaxy. The holographic projector flickers to life, casting blue light across faces etched with determination and fear in equal measure. Mon Mothma speaks first, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they are contemplating. The Emperor's latest decree has crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed, authorizing the systematic elimination of planetary defense forces across the core worlds. Under the guise of maintaining peace, entire star systems are being left defenseless, their ability to resist Imperial occupation stripped away with surgical precision. Senator Garm Bali Bliss of Corellia leans forward, his weathered hands clasped tightly together. His world has always prized its independence, and the thought of Corellian ships serving Imperial interests rather than Corellian freedom sits like poison in his throat. He has seen the reports from the Outer Rim, worlds that resisted Imperial integration reduced to ash and memory, as examples to others who might harbor similar thoughts of defiance. Bail Organa produces a sealed data cylinder, its surface unmarked save for a single symbol that the others recognize immediately. It contains intelligence gathered by contacts throughout the galaxy, proof of atrocities that the Imperial propaganda machine has carefully concealed from the galactic public. Mining colonies work to death on asteroids whose names have been erased from official records. Entire species relocated from their homeworlds to make way for Imperial development projects. Children taken from their families to serve in programs whose true purpose remains shrouded in secrecy. But there is something else in these reports, something that defies easy explanation. A pattern emerges from the data, connecting seemingly unrelated events across vast distances of space and time. Imperial convoys, ambushed with tactics that mirror Clone Wars strategies thought lost with the Jedi. Information brokers who appear from nowhere to offer intelligence to resistance cells, then vanish before they can be questioned. Rescue operations that succeed despite overwhelming odds, as if guided by precognitive knowledge of Imperial movements. The three senators study these accounts in silence, each recognizing the implications. Someone or something is already fighting back against the Empire, operating with a level of coordination and foresight that suggests resources far beyond what scattered resistance cells should possess. The question that haunts their deliberations is simple yet profound. Are they joining an existing rebellion or creating something entirely new? Mon Mothma rises from her chair and moves to the vast window overlooking Coruscant's endless expanse. The city stretches to the horizon in every direction, billions of beings going about their daily lives, while the forces that will determine their future gather in shadows. She thinks of her homeworld of Chandrila, with its rolling hills and crystal-clear lakes, now under constant Imperial surveillance. Every communication monitored, every gathering scrutinized for signs of sedition. The senator from Naboo, Padme Amidala, died in childbirth just as the Republic transformed into the Empire. Her final words, recorded by medical droids, spoke of losing the will to live in a galaxy where freedom had become a forgotten dream. But her colleagues remember her passion for justice, her unwavering belief that democracy could triumph over tyranny if good people were willing to fight for it. In many ways, the choice they make tonight honors her memory and the principles she died defending. Gambel Iblis produces his own intelligence, gathered through Corellian trade networks that span the galaxy. Smugglers and merchants make ideal intelligence operatives, moving freely between systems while carrying more than just cargo in their ship's hidden compartments. Their reports paint a picture of an empire struggling to maintain control over vast distances, relying increasingly on fear and brutality to suppress dissent. Yet there are bright spots in the darkness. On Ryloth, the Twitlic resistance continues to harry Imperial forces despite overwhelming odds. The planet Lothal has become a focal point of unusual activity, with reports of a rebel cell operating with surprising effectiveness against Imperial installations. Most intriguingly, witnesses describe seeing a lightsaber in action during one of these operations, wielded by someone the Empire claims should not exist. The implications send a chill through all three senators. If a Jedi has survived the purges and is actively fighting the Empire, it changes everything. The Jedi were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic, beings with the power to stand against the dark side of the Force that the Emperor represents. Their presence in the growing rebellion would provide not just tactical advantages, but something far more valuable, proof that hope can survive even the darkest times. Bail Organa shares his own burden of knowledge, secrets that weigh heavily on his conscience. He knows the true fate of Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one who fell to the dark side and became Darth Vader, the Emperor's enforcer. But he also knows of another, hidden away on a desert world where twin suns cast long shadows across endless dunes. The decision to keep this knowledge secret was made in the chaos following the Republic's fall, but now it takes on new significance. The three senators make their commitment in words that will echo through history. They pledge their resources, their networks, their very lives to the cause of galactic freedom. but they also acknowledge that they are stepping into the unknown, betting everything on the belief that others will join them when the time comes. The rebellion they envision exists more in hope than in reality, a dream that must be built from the ground up. As the meeting concludes, each senator carries away specific responsibilities. Mon Mothma will work to identify and recruit like-minded individuals within the Senate, building a network of supporters who can operate under the Empire's very nose. Garm Bel Iblis will coordinate with resistance cells in the Outer Rim, providing the funding and resources needed to transform scattered guerrilla groups into an effective fighting force. Bail Organa will serve as the central coordinator, using Alderaa's diplomatic status to facilitate communication between far-flung rebel cells. But the most critical task remains unspoken. They must learn the identity of the mysterious force that seems to be guiding rebel operations across the galaxy. Whether it is a surviving Jedi, a military genius thought dead, or something else entirely, this hidden ally may hold the key to transforming their noble dream into galactic reality. Outside the window, Coruscant's lights twinkle like stars against the darkness, each one representing lives that hang in the balance of the choice they have made tonight. The rebellion has begun not with fanfare or grand gestures, but with the quiet determination of 3 individuals who refuse to let tyranny have the final word. In the days that follow, encrypted messages will travel along trade routes and diplomatic channels, carrying coded words that seem innocent to Imperial senses, but carry revolutionary weight to those who know how to listen. The galaxy will continue to turn, seemingly unchanged, while beneath its surface, a network of hope spreads like roots through rich soil, preparing for the day when it will bloom into something magnificent and unstoppable. The secure chamber beneath the Senate building has not seen such a gathering in decades. 2,000 senators, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic projectors, stand united in purpose, if not in courage. The vast underground amphitheater, designed centuries ago for emergency sessions during galactic crises, now hosts what may become the Empire's first great challenge to its absolute authority. Mon Mothma stands at the center podium, her voice carrying across the assembled representatives with the same clarity that once rang through the Senate chambers above. But now her words carry the weight of treason, each carefully chosen phrase a step further from the safety of compliance and deeper into the dangerous territory of open resistance. The Petition of 2000, as history will remember it, represents more than just a document of grievances against the Emperor. It is a declaration that democracy has not died with the Republic, that the voice of the people can still speak through their elected representatives, even if that voice must now whisper in shadows rather than proclaim from public platforms. Senator after senator rises to add their support to the petition, each name signed representing not just political opposition but personal risk on a scale that few fully comprehend. They come from every corner of the galaxy, from the gleaming core worlds to the rugged frontier systems of the Outer Rim. Humans stand beside Twiz, Bothans next to Sullustans, all united by the belief that the Empire's march toward absolute tyranny must be challenged. Bail Organa produces the intelligence that has driven them to this moment, encrypted data cylinders containing evidence of imperial atrocities that the official news networks will never report, the systematic elimination of planetary governments that showed too much independence, the mysterious disappearances of journalists who asked uncomfortable questions, the construction projects on remote worlds that seem to serve no economic or strategic purpose, consuming resources and lives in equal measure. But most disturbing are the reports that seem to defy rational explanation. Imperial operations proceeding with impossible precision, as if their commanders possessed advanced knowledge of resistance activities. Rebel cells discovered and eliminated before they could strike their first blow. Supply convoys ambushed at precisely the moments when they carried the most valuable cargo. A pattern emerges from the data that chills even the most optimistic among the gathered senators. Someone within the rebellion is providing intelligence to the Empire, or worse yet, the Empire has developed methods of surveillance that penetrate even the most secure communications. The very meeting they now attend may already be compromised, their names and faces recorded by instruments beyond their detection. Yet they proceed with their dangerous work, driven by a conviction that transcends personal safety. The late Senator Padme Amidala's words, recorded in her final address to the Senate, echo through the chamber. So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause. They have watched democracy crumble piece by piece, each new imperial decree greeted with enthusiastic support from senators who have forgotten what freedom means. Garm Beliblis presents Intelligence from the Corellian Sector, his home region's proud tradition of independence now under direct imperial assault. Corellian Engineering Corporation, once a symbol of innovation and autonomous industry, has been placed under imperial oversight. Its shipyards now produce vessels of war rather than exploration, weapons of oppression rather than tools of progress. The petition they draft is carefully worded, walking the narrow line between legitimate political opposition and open treason. It calls for the restoration of full Senate authority, the return of civil liberties suspended during the Clone Wars, and an end to the military occupation of peaceful worlds. These demands seem reasonable on the surface, even moderate, but every senator present knows they are asking for nothing less than the dismantling of the Empire itself. As the document circulates through the chamber, delegates from distant worlds add their signatures with hands that tremble slightly. Despite their resolve, they think of their home worlds, of constituents who trusted them to protect freedoms now under imperial threat. The senator from Sullust speaks of mining operations that consume workers like fuel, their lives measured only by their productivity. The representative from Bothawu describes surveillance networks that monitor every communication, every movement of citizens once considered free. The gathering reveals the true scope of imperial oppression, a web of control that spans the galaxy and touches every aspect of daily life. Yet it also demonstrates something the Emperor may not have anticipated, the resilience of the democratic spirit. Even under conditions of extreme duress, representatives of free peoples can still find ways to speak with one voice. But as the final signatures are recorded, a disturbing realization settles over the assembly. They have created a comprehensive list of the Empire's most dangerous opponents, complete with names, worlds, and political affiliations. Should this document fall into Imperial hands, it would provide them with a roadmap for eliminating the leadership of any potential rebellion. Mon Mothma addresses these concerns directly, acknowledging the risks while emphasizing the necessity of their action. The petition will be delivered to the Emperor through official channels, presented as a legitimate exercise of Senate prerogative. They will maintain the fiction of loyal opposition, expressing their concerns through proper diplomatic procedures while preparing for the more radical measures that may soon become necessary. The meeting concludes with the establishment of secure communication protocols, coded messages that will allow the signatories to coordinate their activities without drawing imperial attention. Each senator receives specific assignments recruiting additional support, gathering intelligence on imperial activities, identifying potential resources for a more active resistance. But perhaps most importantly, they commit to discovering the identity of the mysterious force that seems to be coordinating rebel activities across the galaxy. Too many operations have succeeded against impossible odds. Too many pieces of crucial intelligence have appeared at exactly the right moments. Whether this represents a surviving Jedi, a brilliant military strategist, or something else entirely, they must make contact with this hidden ally. As the senators disperse through hidden passages that lead to different sections of the vast Senate complex, each carrying the weight of the choice they have made, the Empire above continues its daily business seemingly unchanged. Imperial propaganda broadcasts speak of peace and prosperity, of grateful worlds embracing the order and stability that only the Empire can provide. Yet beneath the surface, something fundamental has shifted. The delegation of 2000 represents more than political opposition. It embodies the first organized challenge to imperial authority since the Republic's fall. The petition they have signed may seem like merely a document, but it carries the seeds of revolution within its carefully worded paragraphs. In the days that follow, copies of the petition will find their way to resistance cells throughout the galaxy, proof that they are not alone in their struggle against tyranny. The names of the signatories will become rallying cries for freedom, symbols of hope for worlds that have forgotten what democracy looks like. But for now, in the quiet moments after the historic gathering, the chamber stands empty except for the lingering echoes of voices raised in defiance of an empire that believes itself invincible. The rebellion has found its political voice, and that voice has declared that the fight for freedom has only just begun. The response from the Imperial Palace arrives with deceptive courtesy, wrapped in the formal language of diplomatic acknowledgement. Emperor Palpatine's reply to the petition of 2000 reads like a masterpiece of political theater, expressing gratitude for the Senate's continued dedication to galactic peace while subtly dismissing their concerns as the misguided fears of those who fail to understand the complexities of governing a galaxy at war. Mon Mothma reads the carefully crafted words aloud to the inner circle of senators who have gathered in Bail Organa's private study. The Emperor acknowledges their petition with what appears to be genuine consideration, promising to review their recommendations and implement reforms where appropriate. He speaks of the temporary nature of emergency powers, of his commitment to restoring full democratic processes once the lingering threats from separatist holdouts have been eliminated. For a brief moment, hope flickers in the hearts of even the most cynical among them. Perhaps reason can still prevail over tyranny. Perhaps the Emperor genuinely seeks to govern with the consent of the governed, and their petition has reminded him of the principles upon which the Republic was founded. The language is conciliatory, even humble, acknowledging the wisdom of elected representatives and the importance of their counsel. Garm Bel Iblis allows himself to believe that their bold action has achieved something meaningful. The Corellian senator has always favored direct confrontation over subtle maneuvering, and the Emperor's response seems to validate this approach. If they can work within the system to reform the Empire from within, perhaps the galaxy can be spared the devastation of civil war. But Mon Mothma feels a cold unease settling in her stomach as she studies the document more carefully. The Emperor's words are too perfect, too precisely calibrated to address their concerns without actually promising anything concrete. Every commitment comes with qualifications, every reform dependent upon the elimination of threats that seem to multiply rather than diminish with each passing month. Bail Organa shares her skepticism, pointing out the subtle threats woven through the seemingly conciliatory language. The Emperor expresses concern for the safety of senators who expose themselves to separatist propaganda, warning that those who promote discord might unwittingly aid enemies of the state. He speaks of the need for unity in dangerous times, implying that continued opposition could be construed as collaboration with terrorists. Yet the majority of the delegation of 2000 chooses to interpret the response as a victory, proof that peaceful resistance can achieve meaningful results. Secret meetings are filled with congratulations and planning for the next phase of their campaign. They begin drafting follow-up petitions, organizing committees to monitor imperial compliance with promised reforms, establishing formal channels for ongoing dialogue with the palace. The sense of accomplishment spreads through resistance cells across the galaxy as word of the Emperor's response reaches sympathetic ears. Rebel leaders who have risked everything in armed resistance against Imperial forces begin to question whether violence is necessary when political pressure can apparently achieve the same results more safely. On Ryloth Chamsindola receives the news with mixed emotions. The Twitlik freedom fighter has spent years battling Imperial occupation through guerrilla warfare, watching friends die in hopeless attacks against overwhelming Imperial forces. The possibility that liberation might come through Senate negotiations rather than bloodshed appeals to the part of him that remembers what peace felt like. Similar reactions echo across rebel strongholds throughout the Outer Rim. Resistance cells that have operated in constant fear of discovery begin to emerge from the shadows, believing that political momentum in the core worlds might finally tip the balance toward freedom. Recruitment increases as beings who were afraid to join armed rebellion find courage in the apparent success of peaceful opposition. But even as celebrations continue in hidden meeting rooms and secret bases, disturbing reports begin to filter through intelligence networks. The promised reforms fail to materialize beyond cosmetic changes that affect nothing substantial. Planetary governors continue to rule with absolute authority, local defense forces remain disbanded, and the mysterious construction projects proceed without explanation or oversight. More troubling still are the arrests that begin 3 weeks after the Emperor's gracious response. Senators who signed the petition find themselves subjected to increased surveillance, their communications monitored, their associates questioned by Imperial intelligence. The investigations are conducted with scrupulous attention to legal procedure, always justified by evidence of connections to known terrorist organizations. Mon Mothma discovers the true nature of the Emperor's strategy during a late-night meeting with a contact in Imperial intelligence, who risks everything to warn her. The petition has not been dismissed or ignored. It has been analyzed with scientific precision to identify the leadership structure of galactic opposition to Imperial rule. Every signature provides intelligence about local resistance networks. Every grievance reveals weaknesses in Imperial control that can be strengthened. The Emperor's response was designed not to address their concerns, but to encourage them to reveal more about their organization and capabilities. By responding with apparent reasonableness, he convinced them to lower their guard, to operate more openly, to expand their networks in ways that make surveillance easier and infiltration more effective. The realization hits the rebel leadership like a physical blow. They have been played with masterful skill by an opponent who understands political theater better than any of them imagined. Their petition has become a weapon in the Emperor's hands, their own signatures transformed into targeting data for Imperial operations against the rebellion they sought to build. Yet even this revelation fails to shake the faith of many senators who remain convinced that reform is possible. They argue that the arrests are the work of overzealous Imperial officers rather than direct orders from the Emperor himself. They point to minor policy changes as evidence that their pressure is having an effect, that patience and persistence will eventually wear down Imperial resistance to democratic governance. This division within the rebellion's political leadership creates the first serious crisis of confidence since the movement began. Those who favor continued political opposition argue that abandoning the Senate would leave the Empire free to act without any oversight whatsoever. Those who support more aggressive resistance contend that working within the system only legitimizes Imperial rule while providing no real change. Bail Organa finds himself caught between these competing visions, recognizing the truth in both arguments while understanding that the rebellion cannot survive if its leadership fractures along ideological lines. The choice they face is not simply between different tactics, but between fundamentally different beliefs about the nature of power and the possibility of reform. As winter settles over Coruscant and the Senate chambers grow cold despite their heating systems, the rebels learn their first hard lesson about the enemy they have chosen to fight. The Emperor is not merely a tyrant drunk on power, but a master strategist who understands their motivations better than they understand his. He has turned their greatest strength, their unity of purpose, into a weakness that exposes them to infiltration and elimination. The false hope of the Emperor's gracious response begins to fade as the true scope of Imperial surveillance becomes clear. The rebellion they thought they were building in secret has been observed, analyzed, and catalogued with scientific precision. Every move they make provides more intelligence to an enemy who seems always to be 3 steps ahead of their planning. Yet in the darkness of this realization, a different kind of hope begins to emerge. If political reform is impossible, if the emperor cannot be reasoned with or pressured into change, then the path forward becomes clear. The rebellion must transform itself from a political movement into something far more dangerous, an armed resistance capable of matching imperial ruthlessness with revolutionary determination. The journey into the Outer Rim territories reveals a galaxy transformed beyond recognition from the civilized core worlds where senators debate in marble halls. Here, beneath alien suns and across landscapes scarred by war, the true face of imperial rule shows itself without the diplomatic masks worn in Coruscant's gleaming towers. On Ryloth, the ancient home of the Twi'lek people, Cham Syndulla leads his followers through caverns that wind deep beneath the planet's surface. These tunnels, carved by generations of his ancestors seeking refuge from surface storms, now shelter a different kind of tempest as imperial forces sweep across the world above. The freedom fighter's weathered face bears the marks of countless battles, his eyes holding the weight of decisions that have cost lives but purchased precious moments of liberty. The resistance base hidden within these depths tells its own story of adaptation and survival. Makeshift workshops convert salvaged imperial equipment into weapons of rebellion, while communication arrays jury-rigged from smuggler technology maintain contact with sympathetic cells across the galaxy. Children who should be learning about their culture's rich artistic traditions instead study the technical specifications of imperial vehicles, preparing for a war that has already consumed their childhood. Mon Mothma arrives on Ryloth through channels so secretive that even her closest allies do not know her destination. The journey from the core worlds to this embattled planet requires passage through networks of smugglers and sympathizers who risk their lives to transport rebel leadership between systems. Each transfer point represents another link in a chain that grows stronger despite imperial efforts to break it. The senator from Chandrila finds herself humbled by the sacrifice she witnesses in these underground chambers. While she and her colleagues debate strategy in the relative safety of Coruscant, these beings face death daily for the simple crime of refusing to surrender their freedom. Twi'lek mothers sing lullabies to their children that speak of better days to come, their voices carrying melodies that sound almost like prayers offered to uncaring stars. Cham shares intelligence that chills even Mon Mothma's seasoned political instincts. Imperial operations on Ryloth proceed with a level of coordination that suggests advanced knowledge of resistance activities. Supply convoys are ambushed precisely when they carry the most valuable cargo. Safe houses are raided hours after they receive new refugees. Most disturbing of all, Imperial forces seem to anticipate resistance movements before they occur, positioning troops to intercept attacks that have barely progressed beyond the planning stage. The pattern extends far beyond Ryloth's borders, reaching across the galaxy to touch every world where resistance takes root. On Lothal, farming communities that shelter rebel sympathizers find themselves subjected to arbitrary inspections that uncover hidden weapons caches no Imperial force should have known to seek. On Sullust, mining operations that provide funding for resistance cells suffer mysterious accidents that eliminate key personnel while leaving Imperial overseers unharmed. Yet despite this apparent Imperial omniscience, some operations succeed with such dramatic effectiveness that they seem to defy rational explanation. A prison transport carrying captured rebels suffers catastrophic system failures at precisely the moment when rescue ships arrive to extract the prisoners. An Imperial communications relay experiences a power surge that broadcasts rebel propaganda across an entire sector before protective systems can respond. The most intriguing reports come from Lothal, where witnesses describe encounters with a rebel cell that operates with unprecedented effectiveness against Imperial installations. These insurgents display tactical knowledge that suggests military training far beyond what local resistance groups should possess. More remarkably, several witnesses report seeing a lightsaber wielded during these operations, its blue blade cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope from the galaxy's legendary past. Bail Organa's investigation into these anomalies leads him to a disturbing conclusion that he shares only with his most trusted allies. The patterns suggest not random success and failure, but deliberate manipulation by forces operating outside the normal structure of both the rebellion and the Empire. Someone with access to Imperial intelligence is selectively sharing information with resistance cells while simultaneously ensuring that other operations fail in ways that eliminate security risks. The implications create a web of questions that have no comfortable answers. Is there a highly placed Imperial official who has secretly joined the rebellion? Has the Empire developed such sophisticated surveillance capabilities that they can predict and control resistance activities with scientific precision, or is something else entirely orchestrating events from the shadows, playing both sides against each other for purposes that remain hidden? Mon Mothma spends hours walking through the peaceful sections of the Twi'lek caverns, where underground springs create gardens of luminescent fungi that cast soft blue light across stone walls carved with the history of a proud people. The beauty of these hidden sanctuaries stands in stark contrast to the harsh realities of war that rage above, reminding her of what they fight to preserve. Children approach her with the fearless curiosity of youth, asking questions about the core worlds and whether the stories of planets where beings live free from Imperial oppression are really true. Their innocent faith that adults can somehow make the galaxy safe again weighs heavily on her conscience, a responsibility that extends far beyond political maneuvering into the realm of moral obligation. The Twi'lek elders share stories passed down through generations, tales of their people's resistance to previous conquerors who thought Ryloth's strategic position and mineral wealth could be taken by force. They speak of ancient prophecies that describe a time when the stars themselves will align to support those who fight for freedom, when weapons of light will return to challenge the darkness that threatens to consume all hope. These oral traditions, dismissed by Imperial scholars as primitive superstition, contain references to events and technologies that seem remarkably prescient when viewed through the lens of current galactic conflict. The elders describe a golden age when warrior mystics maintained peace through wisdom and strength, followed by a time of great darkness when evil would seem triumphant, only to be challenged by a new generation of heroes who would restore balance to the galaxy. As night falls over Ryloth's scarred surface, Mon Mothma stands at the entrance to the cavern system, watching Imperial patrol craft trace lazy patterns across the star-filled sky. Their searchlights probe the shadows between ancient rock formations, seeking signs of the resistance that flows like underground rivers through the planet's hidden depths. The contrast between the Empire's mechanical precision and the organic resilience of the rebellion becomes clear in these quiet moments. Imperial forces rely on overwhelming technological superiority and rigid command structures that leave little room for adaptation or innovation. The rebels survive through flexibility, creativity, and the kind of desperate courage that transforms ordinary beings into heroes. Yet the mysterious coordination that enables some rebel operations to succeed while ensuring others fail suggests the presence of a third factor in this galactic equation. Whether this represents divine intervention, scientific manipulation, or something else entirely, it creates opportunities that the rebellion must learn to recognize and exploit. In the depths of Ryloth's caverns, where freedom fighters maintain hope against impossible odds, the true character of the rebellion begins to emerge. It is not just a political movement or military organization, but a spiritual awakening, a rediscovery of principles that tyranny cannot crush or corruption cannot buy. The freedom songs that echo through stone corridors speak of more than just the liberation of individual worlds. They envision the restoration of justice throughout the galaxy, the return of peace that extends beyond the mere absence of war, to encompass the deeper harmony that exists when all beings can pursue their destinies without fear. As Mon Mothma prepares to leave Ryloth and carry news of its struggle back to the core worlds, she understands that the rebellion has evolved beyond the political opposition that began in Senate chambers. it has become something far more dangerous to the Empire's vision of eternal dominance, a living symbol of the galaxy's refusal to surrender its soul to the darkness. The discovery comes through channels so secret that even the rebel leadership questions its authenticity at first. A single data card, no larger than a credit chip, arrives at one of Mon Mothma's safe houses on Coruscant through a network of contacts that spans 3 star systems. The messenger, a former Imperial communications officer whose conscience finally overcame his fear, dies from poison before he can reveal the source of the intelligence he carries. When the data card's encryption is finally broken using codes provided by Bail Organa's contacts in Alderaan intelligence, the contents shatter every assumption the rebels have made about the nature of their struggle. The files contain detailed schematics for a weapon system so massive and destructive that its very existence seems to belong more to nightmare than reality. The Death Star, as Imperial documentation refers to it, represents the ultimate expression of the Empire's philosophy of rule through fear. A space station the size of a small moon, equipped with a superlaser capable of destroying entire planets, it embodies everything the rebellion has fought against. The reduction of trillions of lives to mere statistics in the Emperor's grand design for galactic domination. But buried within the technical specifications lies something even more disturbing than the weapon's destructive capability. The project timeline reveals that construction began years before the Clone Wars ended, during the final days of the Republic, when Chancellor Palpatine still maintained the fiction of democratic governance. The implications are staggering. The destruction of Alderaan, Chandrila, and every other world that has dared to resist Imperial authority was planned before the Empire even officially existed. Mon Mothma studies the data with growing horror, recognizing the systematic nature of what they face. This is not the impulsive tyranny of a dictator drunk on power, but the calculated implementation of a plan decades in the making. Every senator who signed the petition of 2000, every world that harbors rebel sympathizers, every system that shows the slightest inclination toward independence has been catalogued as a potential target for this ultimate weapon. The files reveal the true scope of Imperial resources devoted to the project. Entire sectors have been stripped of their mineral wealth to provide raw materials for construction. Slave labor from a dozen species toils in factories that produce components whose purpose they cannot fathom. Most chilling of all, the weapons targeting computer contains a database of populated worlds ranked by their strategic value and potential for resistance. Garm Bel Iblis arrives at the emergency meeting with intelligence from Corellian sources that confirms their worst fears. Corellian Engineering Corporation has been forced to provide technical expertise for the project despite its leadership's reluctance to participate in what they recognize as an instrument of genocide. Corporate executives who raised objections have been replaced by Imperial appointees whose loyalty to the Emperor supersedes any consideration of moral consequence. The revelation transforms the rebellion's understanding of their enemy in fundamental ways. They had believed themselves to be fighting a political battle against authoritarian government, seeking to restore democratic institutions through a combination of political pressure and limited military action. Now they realize they face something far more sinister, a regime that views the complete subjugation or elimination of dissent as an engineering problem to be solved through technological superiority. Bail Organa shares his own burden of knowledge, information that he has carried alone since the Empire's formation. The Emperor is not merely a corrupt politician who has seized power through manipulation and deceit. He is a Sith Lord, a practitioner of the dark side of the Force, whose mastery of ancient evil gives him capabilities that extend far beyond conventional political authority. This revelation adds another dimension to the rebellion's challenge. They are not just fighting an authoritarian government, but confronting an enemy whose power draws from mystical sources that few living beings understand. The Emperor's ability to foresee their actions, to manipulate events across vast distances, to corrupt and control individuals through means that seem supernatural suddenly makes horrible sense. Yet within these dark revelations lies a spark of hope that none of them expected to find. The Death Star's construction, for all its terrifying implications, represents a strategic vulnerability that the Empire may not have fully considered. A weapon that requires such massive resources to build and maintain necessarily diverts Imperial attention and assets from other priorities. More significantly, the weapon's very existence reveals the Empire's fundamental weakness, the need to rule through fear rather than consent. A government secure in its legitimacy does not require the ability to destroy planets to maintain order. The Death Star represents not Imperial strength, but Imperial desperation, an admission that they cannot govern the galaxy through conventional means. The rebels begin to understand that their struggle has evolved beyond its original parameters into something approaching a religious war between fundamentally incompatible visions of the galaxy's future. The Empire seeks to impose order through terror, reducing the vast diversity of galactic civilization to uniform compliance with Imperial will. The rebellion fights to preserve the right of different worlds and peoples to choose their own destinies. As the inner circle of rebel leadership grapples with these revelations, they also confront a more immediate challenge. The intelligence they possess about the Death Star's existence and capabilities represents the most valuable military information in galactic history. Yet sharing this knowledge widely would expose their sources and methods, potentially compromising the networks that gathered it. Mon Mothma proposes a careful strategy of selective disclosure, sharing enough information to motivate increased rebel recruitment and funding, while protecting the operational details that could enable Imperial countermeasures. The existence of the superweapon must be revealed to demonstrate the stakes of their struggle, but the specific intelligence about its design and construction must be guarded like the precious resource it represents. The psychological impact on rebel cells across the galaxy proves to be profound and complex. Many potential sympathizers, horrified by the scope of Imperial evil revealed by the Death Star project, overcome their previous hesitation to join active resistance. Others, overwhelmed by the apparent futility of fighting an enemy with such devastating capabilities, withdraw from involvement entirely. On Ryloth, Cham Syndulla receives the news with grim satisfaction that validates years of warnings about Imperial intentions. The Twi'lek freedom fighter has long argued that the Empire's ultimate goal is the complete subjugation or elimination of non-human species, and the Death Star represents the tool that could accomplish such genocide on a galactic scale. Similar reactions echo through resistance cells on dozens of worlds as the implications of the revelations sink in. This is no longer a struggle for political reform or even traditional military conquest. The Empire has declared its intention to reshape the galaxy according to its own vision, eliminating any world or people that cannot be perfectly controlled. Yet perhaps most significantly, the revelation changes how the rebels view their own role in galactic history. They are no longer simply political opponents of an authoritarian regime, but the last hope for preserving the diversity and freedom that have characterized galactic civilization for millennia. The weight of this responsibility transforms even the most reluctant among them into committed revolutionaries. In the quiet moments after absorbing these earth-shattering revelations, the rebel leadership faces a choice that will define not just their movement but the future of trillions of beings across the galaxy. They can attempt to hide from the Empire's ultimate weapon, seeking safety through obscurity and hoping that other worlds will be chosen for destruction first. Or they can accept the terrible burden of standing against a power that seems utterly beyond their ability to challenge. The choice, when it comes, surprises no one who truly knows these remarkable individuals. They will fight, not because they believe they can win, but because someone must bear witness to the values that the Empire seeks to destroy. In making this commitment, they transform from political dissidents into something far more dangerous, martyrs whose sacrifice will inspire others long after their names are forgotten. The identity of Fulcrum remains one of the rebellion's most closely guarded secrets, a mystery that has puzzled Imperial intelligence and rebel leadership alike. For months, this enigmatic figure has provided intelligence so precise and actionable that resistance cells across the galaxy have begun to operate with an effectiveness that seems almost supernatural. Supply convoys are ambushed at precisely the right moments. Imperial installations suffer coordinated attacks that exploit weaknesses no external observer should be able to identify, and rescued prisoners carry information that transforms scattered rebel groups into a coordinated network. The breakthrough comes through the most unlikely of sources, a teenage Padawan whose connection to the Force has awakened on the backwater world of Lethal. Ezra Bridger's untrained sensitivity to the cosmic energy that binds all living things allows him to perceive patterns that escape even seasoned intelligence operatives. During a meditation session guided by his master Kanan Jarrus, the young rebel experiences a vision that reveals the truth behind months of perfectly coordinated resistance operations. In the swirling imagery that the Force presents to his consciousness, Ezra sees a female Togruta moving through Imperial facilities with the confidence of someone who belongs there. Her blue and white headtails mark her as a member of a species known for their connection to the Force, yet she wears no Jedi robes and carries no visible lightsaber. Instead, she moves through corridors filled with Imperial officers and stormtroopers, accessing computer terminals and communications arrays with the casual authority of a trusted operative. The vision reveals more than just Fulcrum's identity. It exposes the brilliant strategy that has allowed her to operate under the Empire's very nose. Ahsoka Tano, former Padawan to Anakin Skywalker and survivor of the Jedi Purges, has constructed an elaborate false identity that places her within the Imperial intelligence apparatus itself. Her knowledge of Clone Wars tactics combined with her Force-enhanced intuition enables her to anticipate Imperial operations while appearing to be a loyal operative gathering intelligence on rebel activities. When this revelation reaches Mon Mothma through carefully encrypted channels, it provides answers to questions that have plagued the rebellion's leadership since its inception. The mysterious coordination of rebel operations across vast distances of space and time suddenly makes sense when viewed through the lens of someone with access to Imperial communications networks and strategic planning sessions. Fulcrum has not merely been providing intelligence, she has been subtly manipulating Imperial decision-making to create opportunities for rebel success. The scope of Ahsoka's network becomes clear as intelligence reports from across the galaxy begin to connect previously inexplicable events. The rescue of Senator Tarr from an Imperial detention facility succeeded because Fulcrum provided not just the location of his imprisonment, but also the guard rotation schedules and security protocols. The ambush of an Imperial weapons convoy carrying experimental technology succeeded because she ensured that the escort was diverted to respond to a fabricated emergency. But perhaps most remarkably, Fulcrum's influence extends beyond simple intelligence gathering into the realm of strategic manipulation. Imperial resources are being systematically misdirected toward targets of minimal importance while rebel operations proceed undetected against objectives of genuine strategic value. Supply lines that should support Imperial expansion into rebel-held territories instead carry materials to construction projects that serve no military purpose. Bail Organa recognizes the hand of Jedi training in these operations, the patient application of Force-enhanced perception to achieve objectives that would be impossible through conventional means. Ahsoka has learned to see the interconnected nature of seemingly random events, understanding how small actions in one location can create cascading effects across multiple star systems. The revelation of Fulcrum's identity also explains the mysterious survival of certain rebel cells that should have been eliminated by Imperial counterintelligence operations. When Imperial forces move to crush resistance groups, they often find that their targets have relocated hours before the raids begin. Critical personnel vanish into hyperspace. Just as arrest warrants are issued, equipment caches are moved to new locations before Imperial searchers can uncover them. Yet even as the rebels celebrate their discovery of such a powerful ally, darker truths begin to emerge from the intelligence that Fulcrum provides. The Empire's systematic elimination of Force-sensitive individuals extends far beyond the Jedi purges into a comprehensive program designed to prevent any future challenge to the Emperor's monopoly on mystical power. Children who show signs of Force sensitivity disappear from their families, their fates unknown but certainly grim. The Imperial Inquisition, a secret organization of darkside practitioners trained to hunt Jedi survivors, operates with resources and authority that rival those of the regular military. These fallen Jedi, corrupted by the dark side and bound to the Emperor's will, combine Force powers with Imperial technology to create hunters whose effectiveness against their former colleagues proves devastatingly efficient. Most disturbing of all is the intelligence regarding Grand Admiral Thrawn, a tactical genius whose analytical mind represents a threat to rebel operations that even Fulcrum's network may not be able to counter. This blue-skinned alien from the unknown regions has developed methods of predicting enemy behavior through the study of their art and culture, turning the rebels' greatest strength, their diversity and creativity, into a weapon against them. Thrawn's arrival in the Outer Rim territories coincides with a dramatic increase in successful Imperial operations against rebel cells. His methodical approach to counterinsurgency warfare threatens to unravel networks that have taken years to establish. Unlike other Imperial commanders who rely on brute force and intimidation, Thrawn studies his enemies with the patience of a scholar and the precision of a surgeon. The Grand Admiral's investigation into rebel activities has begun to uncover patterns that could expose Fulcrum's network if allowed to continue. His analysis of successful rebel operations reveals coordination that suggests access to Imperial intelligence, leading him to implement security protocols that make Ahsoka's infiltration increasingly dangerous. As winter deepens across the core worlds and the rebellion faces its greatest challenge yet, the hidden truth of their struggle becomes clear. They are not simply fighting against Imperial tyranny, but participating in an ancient conflict between light and darkness that spans millennia. The Force itself seems to be choosing sides in this galactic civil war, empowering those who serve justice while corrupting those who embrace tyranny. Ahsoka's role as Fulcrum represents more than just clever espionage. It embodies the Jedi ideal of protecting the innocent through wisdom and sacrifice. Her willingness to operate in shadow, abandoning the recognition and honor that Jedi traditionally receive, demonstrates a level of selfless commitment that transforms her from a simple intelligence operative into something approaching a guardian angel for the rebellion. Yet the very success of her operations creates new dangers for the broader resistance movement. Each perfectly coordinated attack, each mysteriously successful rescue operation, each piece of impossible-to-obtain intelligence draws Imperial attention closer to the truth of her existence. The network she has built with such careful patience begins to attract the wrong kind of scrutiny from enemies who possess the skills and resources to unravel even the most carefully constructed deceptions. The rebels find themselves caught between gratitude for Fulcrum's invaluable assistance and fear for her safety as Imperial counterintelligence operations intensify. They understand that losing her would not just deprive them of critical intelligence, but would eliminate one of the few remaining Jedi working actively against the Empire's expansion. In the quiet moments between crisis and action, when rebel leaders gather in secure locations to plan their next moves, they often speak of the mysterious ways in which the Force seems to guide their struggle. Impossible coincidences bring them exactly the allies they need at precisely the right moments. Critical intelligence arrives just in time to prevent disasters that would have decimated their forces. Most remarkably, former enemies transform into trusted allies through conversions that seem too convenient to be random chance. Perhaps the Force itself has chosen to intervene in the galaxy's fate, working through individuals like Ahsoka to ensure that hope survives even in the darkest times, or perhaps the rebellion's cause is so just that the universe itself conspires to assist those who fight for freedom against tyranny. Whatever the explanation, the hidden truth of Fulcrum's identity provides the rebellion with something more valuable than intelligence or tactical advantage. It offers proof that the Jedi ideals of service and sacrifice continue to live in the hearts of those who refuse to surrender to darkness, inspiring others to find the courage necessary to stand against seemingly impossible odds. The formation of Phoenix Squadron represents a turning point in the rebellion's evolution from scattered resistance cells into a unified military force capable of challenging Imperial authority across multiple star systems under the command of Commander Jun Sato, a veteran of the Clone Wars whose weathered face bears the scars of battles fought for the Republic. This small fleet becomes the backbone of organized rebel operations in the Outer Rim territories. Hera Syndulla, the Twilk pilot, whose skill at the controls of the modified VCX-100 freighter Ghost has become legendary among rebel circles, finds herself elevated to a position of leadership that extends far beyond her original role as a cell commander. Her natural ability to inspire loyalty and coordinate complex operations makes her invaluable in welding together the diverse personalities and conflicting agendas that comprise the growing rebellion. The wisdom that flows through these alliance meetings comes not from ancient texts or formal military doctrine, but from the hard-earned experience of beings who have survived years of imperial oppression through courage, ingenuity, and an unshakable commitment to freedom. Each commander brings unique perspectives shaped by the particular challenges their homeworlds have faced under Imperial rule. Sato shares the painful lessons learned during the Empire's conquest of his home system, where traditional military tactics proved inadequate against an enemy willing to target civilian populations to achieve strategic objectives. His experience in adapting Republic naval doctrine to the realities of asymmetric warfare provides crucial guidance for rebel fleet operations that must achieve maximum impact with minimal resources. The Spectres, as Hera's crew has come to be known throughout rebel networks, contribute tactical innovations born from their unique combination of Jedi training and street-level survival skills. Kanan Jarrus, the former Padawan who survived Order 66 by abandoning his Jedi identity, brings knowledge of Force-enhanced combat techniques that prove devastatingly effective against Imperial forces trained to fight conventional enemies. But perhaps most valuable is the wisdom that emerges from their discussions about the moral dimensions of their struggle. These conversations, held during the quiet hours between missions when exhausted rebels gather around makeshift tables in hidden bases, explore questions that have no easy answers. How far can they go in fighting tyranny before they risk becoming the very thing they oppose? What obligations do they owe to civilian populations caught between Imperial oppression and rebel resistance? How do they maintain hope when every victory seems to bring new evidence of the Empire's vast resources and ruthless determination? Ezra Bridger, despite his youth and incomplete training, often provides insights that surprise even veteran commanders. His connection to the Force, unencumbered by formal Jedi doctrine, allows him to perceive patterns and possibilities that more traditional thinking might miss. His ability to communicate with creatures ranging from Purgil to Lothwolves suggests that the rebellion's struggle resonates through the Force in ways that extend beyond the political realm into something approaching cosmic significance. The intelligence networks that Phoenix Squadron coordinates reveal the true scope of Imperial control across the galaxy. Systematic oppression extends into every aspect of daily life for trillions of beings. From the surveillance systems that monitor private communications to the economic policies that ensure Imperial worlds prosper while alien species struggle for basic survival. Yet within these dark reports lie threads of hope that begin to weave together into something approaching a comprehensive strategy for galactic liberation. The Empire's very size and complexity create vulnerabilities that a smaller, more flexible opposition can exploit. Imperial bureaucracy moves slowly, creating windows of opportunity for rapid rebel strikes. Imperial arrogance leads to security lapses that careful intelligence gathering can identify and exploit. Mon Mothma's arrival at the Phoenix Squadron rendezvous brings political legitimacy to military operations that have sometimes operated in legal gray areas. Her presence transforms what might be dismissed as terrorism or piracy into legitimate resistance against an illegitimate government. More practically, her contacts throughout the galaxy provide access to resources and safe havens that independent rebel cells could never obtain. The wisdom she shares comes from decades of political experience in navigating the treacherous currents of galactic governance. Her understanding of how different species and cultures approach concepts like freedom and self-determination proves crucial in building coalitions that span vast differences in biology, technology, and social organization. Bail Organa contributes resources that transform Phoenix Squadron from a desperate band of freedom fighters into the nucleus of a genuine military force. Alderaan's diplomatic immunity provides cover for intelligence operations, while the planet's industrial capacity supplies weapons and equipment that rebel cells have been unable to manufacture or steal in sufficient quantities. But perhaps most significantly, he brings knowledge of other resistance networks operating throughout the galaxy, groups whose existence has been carefully concealed from Imperial intelligence through compartmentalization and security protocols that have taken years to develop. The revelation that the rebellion extends far beyond what any individual cell previously understood provides both inspiration and strategic opportunities that reshape their entire approach to the conflict. The philosophical discussions that emerge during these gatherings explore the deeper meaning of their struggle against imperial tyranny. They speak of freedom, not merely as the absence of oppression, but as the positive right of all beings to choose their own destinies. They envision a galaxy where diversity is celebrated rather than suppressed, where different worlds can maintain their unique cultures while participating in a broader galactic community based on mutual respect and voluntary cooperation. These conversations reveal the profound differences between the rebels' vision of governance and the imperial model that seeks to impose uniform control across vast differences in species, environment, and development. Where the Empire sees diversity as a problem to be solved through standardization and control, the rebels see it as the galaxy's greatest strength and most precious resource. The tactical knowledge that flows through these meetings begins to coalesce into comprehensive strategies that leverage the rebellion's advantages while minimizing their vulnerabilities. Hit-and-run attacks that target Imperial supply lines prove more effective than direct confrontations with superior Imperial forces. Intelligence operations that exploit the Empire's reliance on centralized communication networks create opportunities for sabotage that can affect multiple star systems simultaneously. Perhaps most importantly, the rebels develop methods for inspiring local populations to join their struggle rather than simply enduring it passively. By demonstrating that Imperial rule can be challenged successfully, they provide hope to beings who have accepted oppression as an inevitable fact of life. Each successful operation sends ripples across communications networks that carry news of rebel victories to worlds that have never seen direct evidence of resistance. The wisdom gathered during these crucial months extends beyond military tactics and political strategy into the realm of personal transformation. Individuals who began as survivors, focused primarily on their own protection, discover reserves of courage and commitment that surprise even themselves. Former enemies find common ground in their shared opposition to imperial tyranny, forging bonds that transcend species, ideology, and personal history. As Phoenix Squadron prepares for operations that will test both their capabilities and their resolve, the wisdom they have gathered provides more than just tactical advantages. It offers a vision of what the galaxy could become if their struggle succeeds, a future where the diversity and freedom they fight to preserve become the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. In the quiet moments before launching into hyperspace toward their next mission, these remarkable beings understand that they carry more than weapons and intelligence. They bear the hopes and dreams of countless worlds whose inhabitants dare to believe that tomorrow might be better than today, that freedom is worth any sacrifice, and that even the smallest light can pierce the deepest darkness. The message arrives at the rebel base on Yavin 4 through channels so secret that only a handful of beings in the galaxy know they exist. Princess Leia Organa, daughter of Bail Organa, and heir to Alderaan's noble traditions of resistance against tyranny, carries intelligence that will either provide the rebellion with its greatest hope or confirm their ultimate doom. The Death Star plans, stolen at tremendous cost from the Imperial facility on Scarif, represent the culmination of months of careful planning and desperate sacrifice. Galen Erso's final act of redemption echoes across the galaxy as the truth of his involvement in the Death Star project becomes clear. The brilliant scientist, forced to work on the Empire's ultimate weapon through threats against his family, has spent years embedding a fatal weakness into the battle station's design. His knowledge of the reactor systems, combined with his unwavering moral conviction, transforms what should have been the Empire's guarantee of eternal dominance into the instrument of its potential destruction. The technical specifications contained within the stolen data reveal both the scope of Imperial engineering capability and the elegant simplicity of Erso's sabotage. The thermal exhaust port that provides access to the Death Star's main reactor represents more than just a design flaw. It embodies the rebellion's fundamental belief that no tyranny, regardless of its apparent invincibility, can withstand the determination of those who refuse to surrender their freedom. But the plans also reveal the terrifying scope of Imperial ambition that extends far beyond the conquest of individual star systems into the realm of galactic genocide. The Death Star's targeting computer contains detailed analyses of hundreds of populated worlds, each evaluated for its strategic importance and potential for resistance. Alderaan Mon Mothma's Chandrila and dozens of other worlds that have shown sympathy for the rebellion are marked for immediate destruction once the weapon becomes operational. Princess Leia's arrival on Yavin 4 brings more than just stolen intelligence. She carries the weight of personal loss that transforms the abstract horror of the Death Star into immediate, crushing reality. Alderaan, the peaceful world that served as a beacon of democracy and culture throughout the galaxy, has been reduced to asteroid fragments and the grief of its only surviving heir. The destruction serves as both a demonstration of Imperial power and a warning to any world that dares to shelter rebel sympathizers. Yet even in the face of such overwhelming loss, Leia embodies the principles that have driven the rebellion from its earliest days in the Senate chambers of Coruscant. Her courage in continuing the fight despite personal devastation provides inspiration to rebels who have witnessed their own worlds suffer under Imperial occupation. Her technical knowledge, inherited from her father's diplomatic career, proves crucial in analyzing the Death Star plans and identifying potential avenues of attack. The mirror phrase that connects this climactic moment to the rebellion's humble origins comes in the form of a single word that has sustained them through years of struggle against impossible odds: hope. What began as whispered conversations between senators who dared to dream of freedom has evolved into tangible possibility embodied in stolen plans and the courage of those willing to die for the chance to use them. General Jan Dodonna, the veteran military commander whose experience spans from the Clone Wars through the early days of Imperial expansion, studies the Death Star plans with the careful attention of someone who understands that the fate of galactic civilization may depend on the strategy they develop in the next few hours. His analysis reveals both the magnitude of the challenge they face and the narrow window of opportunity that Galen Erso's sabotage has created. The assault plan that emerges from these desperate deliberations represents the culmination of everything the rebellion has learned about fighting an enemy with vastly superior resources. Small, fast fighters must penetrate the Death Star's defensive perimeter and exploit the weakness that conventional capital ships could never reach. the mission requires not just technical skill, but the kind of desperate courage that has characterized rebel operations since their earliest days. Luke Skywalker's arrival at the rebel base brings more than just another pilot to join the attack. His presence fulfills ancient prophecies and connects the rebellion to mystical forces that extend far beyond military tactics and political strategy. His connection to the Force, though untrained and barely understood, provides the rebels with their first tangible link to the power that once maintained peace and justice throughout the galaxy. The revelation of Luke's true heritage, hidden for years to protect him from the Emperor's attention, transforms the Battle of Yavin from a military operation into something approaching a cosmic confrontation between light and darkness. The son of Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one whose fall to the dark side enabled the Empire's rise, now carries the potential to restore balance to the Force and freedom to the galaxy. Ben Kenobi's sacrifice aboard the Death Star, allowing the stolen plans to reach their destination, demonstrates the kind of selfless commitment that has sustained the rebellion through its darkest hours. His willingness to face his former apprentice, now transformed into the Emperor's enforcer Darth Vader, provides the distraction necessary for the rescue mission to succeed. But perhaps most significantly, his death in the Force rather than in the physical realm ensures that his guidance remains available to Luke at the moment when technical skill alone proves insufficient to complete the impossible mission. The whispered encouragement to trust in the Force rather than rely solely on targeting computers connects Luke to a tradition of wisdom that the Empire believed it had successfully eliminated. The climactic space battle above Yavin 4 represents more than just a military engagement. It embodies the fundamental conflict between tyranny and freedom that has defined the rebellion since its inception. Imperial forces rely on overwhelming technological superiority and rigid tactical doctrine, while the rebels survive through flexibility, creativity, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for the chance to strike a blow against oppression. The destruction of the Death Star sends shockwaves through Imperial command structures that have grown accustomed to invincibility. The loss of their ultimate weapon, along with the hundreds of thousands of personnel aboard the battle station, proves that the Empire can be defeated despite its apparent advantages in resources and technology. But perhaps more importantly, the victory demonstrates that the Force has not abandoned the galaxy to the darkness of Imperial rule. Luke's successful targeting of the thermal exhaust port, guided by instincts that transcend mere marksmanship, provides proof that the mystical energy field that binds all living things continues to support those who fight for justice. The celebration that follows the Death Star's destruction echoes across rebel networks throughout the galaxy, carrying news of victory to resistance cells that have survived on hope alone for years. On Ryloth, Twi'lek freedom fighters sing songs of liberation that speak of a new dawn breaking across the stars. On Lothal, farmers who have hidden rebel sympathizers in their barns dare to believe that Imperial occupation might not be permanent. Yet even in the moment of their greatest triumph, the rebel leadership understands that the destruction of the Death Star represents just the beginning of their struggle against the Empire. The Emperor's response to this humiliation will be swift and brutal, targeting not just military installations, but the civilian populations that support rebel operations. The victory at Yavin provides the rebellion with something more valuable than strategic advantage. It offers proof that their cause is just and their struggle worthwhile. The impossible has become possible through the combination of careful planning, desperate courage, and the mystical guidance of the Force itself. As the twin suns of Yavin rise over the ancient temples that have witnessed this pivotal moment in galactic history, the rebels understand that they have crossed a threshold from which there can be no return. They are no longer simply opposing Imperial tyranny. They have demonstrated their ability to defeat it. The whisper that began in Senate corridors has become a cry of victory that will inspire resistance movements across 1,000 worlds. The Death Star's destruction marks the end of the rebellion's beginning and the start of something far more dangerous to Imperial authority. a genuine threat to their continued dominance over the galaxy. They have ruled through fear for nearly 2 decades. The aftermath of the Death Star's destruction ripples across the galaxy, like waves emanating from a stone dropped into still water, carrying news of the impossible, made real to worlds that have survived on hope alone for years. In the great throne room of the Imperial Palace on Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine receives reports of the battle station's annihilation with the cold fury of someone whose carefully laid plans have been disrupted by forces he did not anticipate. Luke Skywalker stands in the hangar bay of the Rebel base on Yavin 4, his X-Wing fighter still radiating heat from its desperate journey through the Death Star's superstructure, and struggles to comprehend the magnitude of what has occurred. The farm boy from Tatooine, who dreamed of adventure among the stars, has become the instrument through which the Force has chosen to announce its return to galactic affairs. The revelation of Luke's true heritage, whispered to him by Obi-Wan's spirit in the moments before his targeting computer failed, transforms his understanding of both himself and his role in the cosmic struggle between light and darkness. He is not merely another rebel pilot who happened to make an impossible shot, but the son of Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, whose fall to the dark side enabled the Empire's rise to power. Yet even more significantly, he represents something the Emperor believed he had successfully eliminated from the galaxy. A new hope for the restoration of the Jedi Order, and the balance it once maintained between the mystical forces that govern the universe. His connection to the Force, though untrained and barely understood, carries within it the potential to challenge the Sith dominance that has plunged the galaxy into darkness. Princess Leia Organa, now the sole survivor of Alderaan's destruction and heir to its legacy of resistance against tyranny, finds herself grappling with the complex emotions that victory brings to those who have paid its ultimate price. The Death Star's destruction has avenged her homeworld and validated her father's faith in the rebellion, yet it cannot restore the billions of lives lost to Imperial cruelty or heal the wound in her heart left by their passing. Her strength in the face of such overwhelming loss provides inspiration to rebels throughout the galaxy who have witnessed their own worlds suffer under Imperial occupation. The princess who could have chosen exile and safety instead commits herself more deeply to the struggle for galactic freedom, understanding that Alderaan's sacrifice must not be allowed to occur in vain. The broader implications of the rebellion's victory begin to manifest across star systems where Imperial control has gone unchallenged for years. On Ryloth, Cham Syndulla receives news of the Death Star's destruction with a mixture of joy and disbelief that such a thing could be possible. The Twi'lek freedom fighter, who has survived years of hopeless struggle against overwhelming Imperial forces, suddenly finds himself leading a resistance movement that has proven its ability to defeat the Empire's ultimate weapon. Similar reactions echo through hidden rebel cells on hundreds of worlds as the impossible becomes undeniable reality. The Empire, which has ruled through fear of its technological superiority and military might, has been proven vulnerable to beings with sufficient courage and determination. More importantly, the mystical force that Emperor Palpatine declared a relic of primitive superstition has demonstrated its continued relevance in galactic affairs. The Force itself seems to celebrate the victory, sending ripples through the cosmic energy field that sensitive beings feel as a disturbance in the natural order that has persisted since the Jedi purges. On distant worlds, individuals who have hidden their Force sensitivity for years find themselves experiencing visions of hope that speak of a new age dawning across the galaxy. Yet the victory at Yavin also reveals the true scope of the challenge that lies ahead for the rebellion. Luke's successful destruction of the Death Star represents just the first step in a longer journey that will require him to develop his Force abilities while learning to navigate the complex moral landscape of galactic warfare. His power carries within it the same potential for corruption that transformed his father into Darth Vader. The political ramifications of the Death Star's destruction extend far beyond military considerations into the realm of galactic governance and legitimate authority. The rebellion has demonstrated not just its ability to strike back against Imperial tyranny, but its capacity to protect innocent lives from the Empire's ultimate weapon. This transforms their legal status from terrorist organization to legitimate government in exile. Mon Mothma recognizes the opportunity that victory has created to transform the rebellion from a collection of scattered resistant cells into a unified political entity capable of governing the galaxy. Once Imperial authority collapses, the Rebel Alliance must evolve beyond its origins as a military organization into something approaching a shadow government that can provide leadership during the chaos that will inevitably follow the Empire's eventual defeat. The intelligence gathered during the Death Star assault reveals disturbing information about Imperial capabilities that extend far beyond the destroyed battle station. Construction facilities capable of building such massive weapons suggest resources and industrial capacity that dwarf anything the rebellion can hope to match through conventional means. More troubling still are reports of a second Death Star already under construction, protected by lessons learned from the first station's vulnerability. Yet within these dark revelations lies validation of the rebellion's fundamental strategy. The Empire's reliance on massive, centralized weapons systems creates opportunities for small, flexible forces to achieve victories that would be impossible through direct military confrontation. The Death Star's destruction proves that technological superiority cannot guarantee victory against opponents willing to sacrifice everything for their cause. Luke's growing connection to the Force also begins to reveal information about other survivors of the Jedi purges who remain hidden throughout the galaxy. His sensitivity to the cosmic energy field allows him to perceive disturbances that suggest the presence of other Force users, both light and dark, who have managed to evade Imperial detection. The Emperor's response to the Death Star's loss involves more than just military retaliation. It includes the deployment of specialized hunters trained to seek out and eliminate any remaining Jedi who might threaten his monopoly on Force-based power. The Imperial Inquisition, augmented by dark side adepts whose corruption mirrors Vader's fall, begins systematic searches for the pilot whose impossible shot revealed the continued presence of Force sensitivity in the galaxy. As the celebration on Yavin 4 gives way to preparations for the Imperial counterattack that must inevitably follow, the rebels understand that they have crossed a threshold from which there can be no return. They are no longer simply resisting Imperial authority. They have demonstrated their ability to challenge and defeat it through methods that combine military strategy with mystical power. The ancient Jedi Temple on Yavin 4, which has sheltered the rebel base throughout their preparations for the Death Star assault, seems to pulse with renewed energy as Luke's presence awakens Force currents that have lain dormant since the Empire's rise. The massive stone structure, built by a civilization lost to history, bears witness to the cyclical nature of the struggle between light and darkness that has shaped galactic civilization for millennia. In the quiet moments after victory, when exhausted rebels gather to honor those who died making triumph possible, they speak of the miracle that allowed their desperate gamble to succeed. Some attribute it to careful planning and exceptional piloting skill. Others point to the weakness that Galen Erso built into the Death Star's design. But those sensitive to the Force understand that something far more profound guided events during the battle, ensuring that hope survived when despair seemed certain. The whisper that began in Senate corridors has become a declaration of war that echoes across the galaxy, carried by the Force itself to every world where beings still remember what freedom means. The rebellion has announced its presence not through words or manifestos, but through the impossible deed that proves their cause enjoys the support of powers beyond Imperial comprehension or control. The Empire's response to the Death Star's destruction comes with the crushing weight of Imperial vengeance unleashed across every star system suspected of harboring rebel sympathies. Darth Vader, His meditation chamber, filled with the dark energies of his rage and humiliation, leads a campaign of retribution that transforms the galaxy into a hunting ground where no world can claim safety from Imperial wrath. The evacuation of Yavin 4 marks the end of the rebellion's brief moment of triumph, as probe droids and Imperial intelligence operatives close in on their hidden base. The ancient Jedi temple that sheltered the rebels during their greatest victory becomes a monument to the temporary nature of all military advantages, its stone corridors echoing with the footsteps of departing heroes who must once again become fugitives. Luke Skywalker finds himself thrust into a role for which nothing in his previous experience has prepared him. The farm boy who destroyed the Death Star through instinct and Force guidance must now learn to become a Jedi while participating in a galactic war that grows more desperate with each Imperial victory. His training on Dagobah with the ancient Jedi Master Yoda reveals both the vast scope of his potential and the terrifying ease with which that power could be corrupted. The swamp world, where Yoda has hidden for decades, provides a stark contrast to the technological marvels and political complexities that define the galactic civil war. In the primal environment of Dagobah, where life feeds on life in endless cycles of death and renewal, Luke learns that the Force extends far beyond the ability to influence minds or move objects through concentration. Yoda's teachings reveal the cosmic nature of the struggle between light and darkness, explaining how the Emperor's rise to power represents more than just political tyranny, but a fundamental imbalance in the Force itself. The Sith philosophy of domination through power has created disturbances that affect every living thing in the galaxy, from the smallest microorganism to the most advanced civilizations. Yet even as Luke develops his connection to the Force, the rebellion faces its darkest hour since the movement began in the secret chambers beneath the Imperial Senate. The Battle of Hoth demonstrates the Empire's ability to adapt its tactics to counter rebel advantages, using massive ground assault forces to overcome the defensive advantages that protected the rebel base. The evacuation of Echo Base becomes a testament to the bonds of loyalty and sacrifice that have sustained the rebellion through years of struggle against overwhelming odds. Rebel personnel risked their lives to ensure that evacuating transports escape Imperial blockade, understanding that the survival of the Alliance depends on preserving its leadership and military assets for future operations. Han Solo's decision to rescue Luke from the carbon-freezing chamber on Cloud City, despite the obvious trap that Vader has prepared, demonstrates the personal bonds that have transformed a collection of independent rebel cells into something approaching a family united by shared purpose and mutual sacrifice. The revelation of Vader's true identity as Luke's father shatters the young Jedi's understanding of his place in the cosmic struggle between good and evil. The discovery that the galaxy's greatest symbol of imperial tyranny shares his bloodline forces Luke to confront the possibility that he carries within himself the same potential for corruption that destroyed Anakin Skywalker. Yet, this devastating truth also provides insight into the nature of redemption and the possibility that even the darkest fall can be reversed through love and sacrifice. Vader's attempt to recruit Luke reveals cracks in the Sith Lord's absolute commitment to the dark side, suggesting that some fragment of Anakin Skywalker remains buried beneath layers of mechanical enhancement and Force-fueled rage. The loss of Han Solo to Boba Fett's custody creates a wound in the rebellion's heart that extends far beyond the tactical disadvantage of losing an experienced smuggler and military leader. His relationship with Princess Leia has provided both of them with emotional anchors that help them maintain their humanity despite the dehumanizing effects of prolonged warfare. Leia's anguish at Han's capture reflects the broader suffering that the rebellion has endured, as the Empire's counterattack eliminates safe houses, destroys supply lines, and forces rebel cells into increasingly desperate circumstances. The princess, who has already lost her homeworld, now faces the possibility of losing the man she loves to imperial cruelty. The scattered rebel fleet that emerges from the disasters at Hoth and Cloud City bears little resemblance to the confident force that celebrated victory at Yavin. Ships flee through hyperspace toward destinations known only to their individual commanders, maintaining communications silence to prevent Imperial interdiction while struggling to maintain unit cohesion across vast distances. Yet within this apparent defeat lies the seeds of ultimate victory, as the Empire's success breeds the overconfidence that has historically preceded the fall of tyrants throughout galactic history. Vader's obsession with converting Luke to the dark side distracts him from more practical concerns about rebel military capabilities and strategic planning. The Emperor's decision to reveal himself directly in the conflict, emerging from the shadows where he has manipulated events for decades, represents both an escalation of Imperial commitment and an opportunity for the rebellion to strike at the source of their oppression. Luke's training on Dagobah, though incomplete, provides him with insights into the Force that extend far beyond combat techniques or telekinetic abilities. Yoda's lessons about the connection between all living things help him understand that the rebellion's struggle represents more than just a political conflict, but a cosmic rebalancing that will determine the galaxy's spiritual future. The ancient Jedi Master's warnings about the seductive power of the dark side prove prescient as Luke faces the temptation to use his growing abilities for revenge against those who have caused him and his friends such suffering. The ease with which anger and hatred can be channeled through the Force creates constant danger that the rebellion's greatest hope might become its most terrible enemy. Mon Mothma's efforts to maintain political unity within the Alliance become increasingly difficult as military setbacks fuel debates about strategy and leadership. Some rebel commanders argue for more aggressive tactics that might achieve faster results, while others contend that the movement's moral authority depends on maintaining restraint even under extreme provocation. The debate reflects deeper philosophical questions about the nature of just war and the methods that freedom fighters can employ without becoming indistinguishable from the tyranny they oppose. The rebellion's commitment to protecting innocent lives sometimes conflicts with military necessity, creating moral dilemmas that have no perfect solutions. As the second year after Yavin draws to a close, the rebellion finds itself transformed by adversity into something harder and more resilient than the idealistic movement that began in Senate chambers. The comfortable illusions about easy victory and moral clarity have been stripped away by the harsh realities of galactic warfare. Yet the bonds forged through shared suffering prove stronger than the political alliances that initially brought the rebels together. Beings from dozens of species and hundreds of worlds discover that their commitment to freedom transcends the differences that might otherwise divide them. The revelation that Luke carries within himself both the potential for ultimate redemption and ultimate corruption mirrors the rebellion's own position as the inheritor of both the Republic's noble ideals and its fatal weaknesses. The choices they make in the dark period following their greatest defeats will determine whether they become worthy successors to the democracy they seek to restore. In the hidden bases and secret meeting places where surviving rebels gather to plan their next moves, they speak of hope with a deeper understanding of its true cost. Victory will require not just military success but spiritual transformation, the kind of fundamental change that can only come through suffering willingly accepted for the sake of others. The months following the disasters at Hoth and Cloud City test the rebellion's resilience in ways that no military defeat could accomplish. Scattered across 1,000 hiding places throughout the Outer Rim territories, rebel cells struggle to maintain contact with their leadership while Imperial hunters close in on networks that once seemed secure from detection. Mon Mothma finds herself coordinating a resistance movement that exists more in spirit than in physical reality, its commanders communicating through coded transmissions that carry across star systems where Imperial surveillance grows more sophisticated with each passing day. The political leader who once debated legislation in the marble halls of the Senate now operates from cramped quarters aboard merchant vessels and hidden outposts, her authority reduced to whatever influence her reputation and wisdom can provide. The intelligence networks that proved so crucial during the rebellion's early victories begin to show signs of compromise as Imperial counterintelligence operations identify and eliminate key operatives. Bothan spies, whose species' natural aptitude for gathering information has made them invaluable allies, report increasing difficulty in penetrating Imperial security systems that have been upgraded to prevent future intelligence breaches. Yet within this apparent fragmentation lies evidence of the rebellion's evolution into something more dangerous to Imperial authority than a conventional military organization. Rather than relying on centralized command structures that can be decapitated through targeted strikes, the Alliance develops cellular networks that continue operating even when leadership is eliminated or communications are severed. Lando Calrissian's transformation from reluctant accomplice in Han Solo's capture to committed rebel operative demonstrates the personal nature of the choices that drive individuals to join the Alliance despite the obvious risks. The administrator of Cloud City, who betrayed his friend to protect his people, discovers that collaboration with the Empire provides no real security when Imperial priorities change. His knowledge of Imperial operations in the Outer Rim territories, combined with his connections to the independent traders and miners who form the backbone of frontier commerce, proves invaluable in establishing new supply lines that bypass Imperial checkpoints. More importantly, his guilt over Han's fate drives him to take risks that a purely rational calculation would never justify. The rescue of Han Solo from Jabba's palace on Tatooine represents more than just the recovery of a valued military leader. It demonstrates the rebellion's commitment to leaving no one behind, even when rescue operations require resources that could be better utilized for strategic objectives. The successful infiltration of the Hutt's stronghold reveals tactical capabilities that Imperial intelligence has consistently underestimated. Luke Skywalker's role in the rescue operation showcases the dramatic development of his Force abilities during the period since his training with Yoda. The young Jedi's confidence in wielding his lightsaber against Jabba's guards and his mastery of telekinetic powers suggest that his incomplete education has been supplemented by practical experience and continued spiritual growth. Yet the rescue also reveals the dangerous edge that suffering has added to Luke's personality, a hardness that was absent during his earlier innocence on Tatooine. His willingness to kill Jabba's guards while tactically necessary suggests that the line between justice and vengeance has become blurred in ways that would concern his former masters. The Bothan spy network's discovery of the second Death Star's construction above the forest moon of Endor provides the rebellion with intelligence that transforms their strategic situation from defensive survival to the possibility of decisive victory. The revelation that the Emperor himself will oversee the battle station's completion creates an opportunity to eliminate both the Empire's ultimate weapon and its supreme leader in a single operation. Yet the intelligence also reveals the sophisticated trap that Imperial strategists have prepared for the rebel fleet. The second Death Star, though incomplete, possesses a fully operational superlaser capable of destroying capital ships with the same ease that its predecessor eliminated planets. The battle station's position above Endor places it under the protection of an entire Imperial fleet that has been positioned to prevent any repeat of the Yavin victory. Admiral Akbar's analysis of the tactical situation reveals the desperate nature of the gamble that the rebellion must accept if they hope to end the war before their scattered forces are eliminated piecemeal by Imperial hunters. The Mon Calamari fleet commander, whose people have suffered under Imperial occupation, understands that conventional military wisdom argues against attacking such a well-defended target. Yet he also recognizes that the rebellion's survival depends on their ability to achieve victory through methods that transcend conventional thinking. The Alliance has succeeded throughout its existence by accomplishing the impossible through courage, ingenuity, and the mystical guidance of the Force itself. The political implications of the planned assault extend far beyond military considerations into questions of governmental legitimacy and the moral authority to rule a galaxy. Victory would eliminate the Empire's leadership and demonstrate the rebellion's capacity to protect galactic civilization from tyranny. Failure would validate Imperial claims that only authoritarian government can maintain order across such vast distances and diverse populations. Mon Mothma's decision to commit the rebellion's entire fleet to the Endor operation represents the culmination of years of difficult choices that have gradually transformed her from a political reformer into a revolutionary leader willing to risk everything for the chance of total victory. The senator, who once believed in working within the system to achieve change, now understands that some evils can only be defeated through complete destruction. The personal relationships that have sustained rebel leadership through years of struggle take on special significance as they prepare for what may be their final battle. The bonds between Luke, Leia, and Han transcend mere friendship to represent the kind of family that forms when individuals choose to sacrifice themselves for each other's welfare. Leia's revelation of her own Force sensitivity adds another dimension to the mystical elements that have guided the rebellion since its inception. Her untrained but powerful connection to the cosmic energy field suggests that the Force has been working through multiple channels to ensure that the galaxy's darkest hour also becomes the moment when hope finally triumphs over despair. The strike team, assigned to disable the Death Star's shield generator, faces challenges that require more than military skill to overcome. The forest moon of Endor, inhabited by primitive Ewoks, whose tribal society has remained unchanged for centuries, represents a completely different battlefield where high technology must coexist with Stone Age weapons and ancient wisdom. The Ewoks' decision to ally with the rebels against Imperial occupation demonstrates that the struggle for freedom transcends species boundaries and technological development levels. Their knowledge of Endor's forests proves crucial in overcoming Imperial defenses that were designed to repel conventional military attacks. As the scattered pieces of the rebellion converge on Endor for their final gamble, each participant understands that they carry the hopes and dreams of countless beings who have suffered under Imperial oppression. The farmers of Lothal, the freedom fighters of Ryloth, the survivors of Alderaan, and the enslaved populations of 100 worlds all depend on the success of an operation that logic suggests cannot possibly succeed. Yet the rebellion has built its entire existence on the principle that the impossible becomes possible when ordinary beings choose to become extraordinary through acts of selfless courage. The scattered pieces that seemed like evidence of defeat have been revealed as the elements of a strategy that could accomplish what no conventional military campaign could achieve. The forest moon of Endor becomes the stage for the rebellion's most audacious operation, a three-pronged assault that must succeed simultaneously across multiple theaters of engagement or fail catastrophically in all of them. Admiral Akbar's fleet prepares to challenge the Imperial Navy in open space combat, while Luke Skywalker surrenders himself to Darth Vader in a desperate attempt to fulfill his destiny as a Jedi. And Han Solo leads a strike team through ancient forests to disable the Death Star's protective shield generator. The coordination required for such a complex operation tests every system and relationship that the rebellion has developed over years of struggle against Imperial tyranny. Communications must flow seamlessly between units operating in completely different environments, from the vacuum of space where capital ships maneuver in three-dimensional combat to the surface of Endor, where primitive technology meets sophisticated Imperial defenses. General Han Solo, recently promoted from his informal role as smuggler and scoundrel to official military command, finds himself responsible for leading a mission that requires diplomatic skills he never imagined needing. The strike team's success depends not just on their ability to penetrate Imperial security, but on their capacity to forge an alliance with the Ewoks, whose knowledge of Endor's forests proves essential to overcoming enemy positions. The Ewoks themselves represent everything the Empire has dismissed as irrelevant to galactic civilization. These small furry beings have maintained their tribal society in harmony with Endor's ecosystem for countless generations, developing technologies that blend seamlessly with their natural environment rather than dominating it through industrial exploitation. Yet beneath their primitive appearance lies a sophisticated understanding of warfare that proves devastatingly effective against Imperial forces trained to fight conventional enemies. Their knowledge of Endor's terrain, combined with their mastery of camouflage and guerrilla tactics, transforms what should have been a routine security operation into a nightmare for Imperial commanders who find themselves under attack from enemies they cannot see or predict. Princess Leia's role in establishing the alliance with the Ewoks demonstrates the diplomatic skills that have made her invaluable to the rebellion despite her youth and the personal losses she has endured. Her ability to communicate respect for Ewok culture while explaining the galactic stakes of their struggle creates bonds that transcend the obvious differences between their civilizations. The revelation of her own Force sensitivity, long dormant but finally awakening under the pressure of desperate circumstances, adds another dimension to the mystical elements that have guided the rebellion throughout its existence. Her connection to Luke extends beyond their shared bloodline into the realm of cosmic significance, suggesting that the Force has been preparing multiple champions for this climactic confrontation. Luke's decision to surrender himself to Imperial custody represents the culmination of his journey from farm boy to Jedi Knight, a transformation that requires him to trust in the Force, even when all conventional wisdom argues against such faith. His belief that Anakin Skywalker still exists somewhere within Darth Vader's mechanical shell drives him to attempt a redemption that Obi-Wan and Yoda both consider impossible. The Emperor's presence aboard the second Death Star transforms what might have been a simple military operation into a confrontation between the light and dark sides of the Force that will determine the galaxy's spiritual future. His confidence in the trap he has prepared for the Rebel fleet stems not just from superior numbers and tactical position, but from his certainty that he can corrupt Luke as he once corrupted Anakin. Yet the Emperor's overconfidence in his mastery of the dark side blinds him to the possibility that love might prove stronger than fear, that compassion could overcome hatred, and that the bonds between father and son might survive even the most complete fall to evil. His elaborate plan to turn Luke to the dark side by forcing him to witness the destruction of his friends contains within it the seeds of his own destruction. Admiral Akbar's fleet emerges from hyperspace to discover that the intelligence about the Death Star's incomplete status was deliberately falsified as part of the Imperial trap. The battle station's superlaser proves fully operational, capable of destroying Rebel capital ships with devastating precision, while the Imperial fleet prevents any retreat to safety. The Mon Calamari admiral, whose people have suffered under Imperial occupation, understands that the rebellion faces annihilation unless the ground assault succeeds in disabling the Death Star's shields. His decision to continue the attack despite impossible odds demonstrates the kind of desperate courage that has characterized Rebel operations since their earliest days. The space battle that unfolds above Endor represents the culmination of years of tactical innovation and strategic planning that have allowed Rebel forces to compete with Imperial superiority in numbers and technology. X-wing fighters and B-wing bombers dart between massive star destroyers, seeking vulnerable points where concentrated attacks can achieve disproportionate damage. Yet the true battle takes place not in the vacuum of space or the forests of Endor, but within the Emperor's throne room, where 3 generations of Skywalkers confront the legacy of choices made decades earlier. Luke's refusal to strike down his father in anger represents a victory for the light side that transcends any military achievement. Darth Vader's ultimate choice to save his son by destroying his master fulfills ancient prophecies about the chosen one who would bring balance to the Force. His redemption comes at the cost of his own life, but it also eliminates the source of the dark side's dominance over galactic affairs. The destruction of the second Death Star, achieved through Lando Calrissian's desperate flight through the battle station's superstructure, sends shockwaves through Imperial command structures that have depended on the Emperor's guidance for every major decision. Without his unifying presence, the vast Imperial military machine begins to fragment into competing factions. The Ewok celebration of victory on Endor's surface reflects the broader joy that spreads across a galaxy finally freed from the fear of Imperial retribution. Their primitive songs and dances honor not just their own survival, but the restoration of freedom to countless worlds that have waited years for this moment. Yet even in triumph, the rebels understand that their victory represents only the beginning of the challenge to rebuild galactic civilization along democratic principles. The Empire's collapse creates a power vacuum that must be filled by institutions capable of governing justly across vast distances and diverse populations. The personal relationships that have sustained the rebellion through its darkest hours take on new significance as the survivors contemplate a future without the shared struggle that has defined their lives for years. Han and Leia's love, tested by separation and near death, provides a foundation for hope that extends beyond mere political liberation into the realm of personal happiness. Luke's emergence as a true Jedi Knight, having passed the ultimate test of refusing to succumb to hatred and revenge, offers proof that the Order can be rebuilt on principles of compassion rather than the detachment that contributed to its original downfall. His connection to the Force, purified through suffering and sacrifice, provides guidance for a galaxy seeking to heal from decades of tyranny. The rebellion's transformation from scattered resistance cells into the foundation of a new galactic government demonstrates the power of ordinary beings to achieve extraordinary results when united by shared principles and mutual sacrifice. Their victory proves that no tyranny, regardless of its apparent strength, can withstand the determined opposition of those who refuse to surrender their freedom. The throne room of the second Death Star becomes the stage for a confrontation that transcends the political and military dimensions of the galactic civil war, ascending into the realm of cosmic significance, where the fundamental forces that govern the universe clash in their eternal struggle between creation and destruction, love and hatred, hope and despair. Emperor Palpatine, the master manipulator who has orchestrated galactic events for decades through careful application of Sith philosophy and political cunning, reveals the true scope of his power as he unleashes Force lightning against Luke Skywalker with an intensity that threatens to consume the young Jedi's life force entirely. His confidence in his ability to corrupt or destroy any opponent stems from centuries of dark side mastery that have made him perhaps the most powerful Sith Lord in galactic history. Yet the Emperor's greatest strength becomes his fatal weakness as his absolute faith in the supremacy of hatred blinds him to the possibility that love might prove stronger than fear. His elaborate plan to turn Luke to the dark side by forcing him to witness the destruction of his friends contains within it the assumption that compassion is weakness rather than the greatest power in the universe. Luke Skywalker's refusal to strike down his father in anger represents more than just personal moral victory. It embodies the fundamental principle that separates Jedi from Sith in their approach to the Force. Where the dark side seeks to impose its will through dominance and control, the light side finds strength through acceptance and sacrifice for others. The moment when Luke casts aside his lightsaber and declares himself a Jedi like his father before him marks the completion of his transformation from the impetuous farm boy who dreamed of adventure to a mature guardian of peace and justice. His willingness to face death, rather than compromise his principles, demonstrates the kind of courage that no amount of Force power can create or destroy. Darth Vader's final choice to save his son by destroying his master fulfills prophecies that have echoed through the Force for generations, bringing balance to the cosmic energy that binds all living things together. The redemption of Anakin Skywalker comes at the cost of his own life, but it also eliminates the source of the dark side's dominance over galactic affairs for the first time in decades. The physical act of lifting Emperor Palpatine and hurling him into the Death Star's reactor core requires strength that Vader's damaged body should no longer possess, suggesting that the Force itself channels through him in this moment of ultimate sacrifice. His choice to save Luke, despite the certainty of his own death, represents the triumph of paternal love over the conditioning and corruption of decades. As the Emperor's physical form is destroyed, the dark side energies that have maintained his unnatural longevity dissipate in a cascade of Force lightning that illuminates the throne room with supernatural fire. His death sends shockwaves through the mystical realm that sensitive beings feel across the galaxy, marking the end of an era in which evil seemed triumphant over good. The destruction of the second Death Star, achieved through Lando Calrissian's desperate navigation of the battle station's internal structure while Imperial forces collapse around him, represents the rebellion's ultimate validation of their belief that courage and determination can overcome any technological advantage. The explosion that consumes the massive weapon sends debris across Endor's orbit like a meteor shower, celebrating the return of freedom to the galaxy. Anakin Skywalker's final moments with his son, his mask removed to reveal the scarred but human face beneath decades of mechanical enhancement, provide closure to a tragedy that began with the fall of the Jedi Order and the rise of the Empire. His last words, expressing gratitude for Luke's faith in his redemption, heal wounds that have shaped galactic history for an entire generation. The space battle above Endor concludes with the surrender of Imperial forces whose command structure has been decapitated by the Emperor's death and the destruction of their ultimate weapon. Admiral Akbar's fleet, reduced to a fraction of its original strength but victorious against impossible odds, begins the process of accepting the surrender of Star Destroyers whose crews no longer have orders to follow. On Endor's surface, the successful destruction of the shield generator facility by Han Solo's strike team creates a celebration that unites beings from across the galactic spectrum in shared joy at their survival and victory. Ewoks dance alongside human rebels, Bothans sing harmonies with Twi'leks, and former enemies embrace in recognition of their common triumph over tyranny. Princess Leia's emergence as a Force-sensitive individual adds another dimension to the victory, suggesting that the mystical power that guides the universe has been working through multiple channels to ensure that hope ultimately triumphs over despair. Her connection to Luke extends beyond their shared bloodline into the realm of cosmic significance that will shape the galaxy's future. The revelation of Leia's true parentage, shared by Luke as they watch their father's funeral pyre burn beneath Endor's stars, provides both siblings with a deeper understanding of their role in the cosmic struggle that has defined their lives. They carry within themselves the potential for both creation and destruction, requiring wisdom and compassion to ensure that their power serves the cause of justice. The political implications of the Empire's collapse begin to manifest across star systems, where imperial governors and military commanders must choose between continued resistance and acceptance of the new reality. Some imperial remnants retreat to fortress worlds in the unknown regions, while others surrender to rebel forces or simply abandon their posts and disappear into the galactic underground. Mon Mothma's transition from rebel leader to the architect of a new galactic government presents challenges that dwarf anything the Alliance faced during its years of armed resistance. The task of rebuilding democratic institutions across thousands of worlds with different cultures, technologies, and political traditions requires diplomatic skills and administrative wisdom that military victory alone cannot provide. The celebration that spreads across the galaxy as news of the Emperor's death reaches worlds that have suffered under imperial oppression for decades reflects the deep hunger for freedom that tyranny can suppress but never eliminate. On Coruscant, crowds gather in the streets to tear down imperial symbols and demand the restoration of democratic governance. On Ryloth, Twice-Lick freedom fighters emerge from their hidden bases to reclaim their world's surface. On countless other planets, beings who have hidden their opposition to imperial rule finally dare to speak openly about their dreams for a better future. Yet even in the moment of ultimate triumph, the survivors of the rebellion understand that their victory represents only the beginning of the challenge to create a just and lasting peace. The Empire's collapse creates opportunities for criminal organizations, separatist movements, and ambitious warlords to fill the power vacuum, unless democratic institutions can be established quickly and effectively. Luke Skywalker's emergence as the galaxy's only trained Jedi carries with it the responsibility to rebuild the Order along principles that avoid the mistakes that led to its original destruction. His understanding of the Force, tempered by personal loss and the wisdom of redemption, offers hope that the new Jedi will serve as guardians of peace rather than warriors trapped by their own dogma. The bonds forged through years of shared struggle against overwhelming odds provide the foundation for relationships that will shape galactic politics for generations to come. The love between Han Solo and Princess Leia, tested by separation and near death, offers a model for the kind of personal commitment that democratic societies require to function effectively. As the celebration continues beneath Endor's ancient trees, where primitive wisdom has witnessed the triumph of good over evil, the survivors of the rebellion understand that they have participated in events that will echo through galactic history for millennia. Their courage in facing impossible odds has restored balance to the Force and freedom to a galaxy that had almost forgotten what democracy meant. The galaxy awakens to freedom, like a patient emerging from a long and terrible fever, slowly recognizing that the nightmare of imperial tyranny has finally ended, but uncertain whether the peace they feel is real or merely another cruel dream that will dissolve with the morning light. On 1,000 worlds, beings who have lived their entire lives under authoritarian rule struggle to comprehend what liberation actually means in practical terms. The immediate aftermath of the Emperor's death creates a power vacuum that stretches across star systems where imperial governors must choose between continued resistance and acceptance of the new reality. Some retreat to fortress worlds in the unknown regions, gathering loyalist forces around them in desperate attempts to maintain their authority through military might. Others simply abandon their posts and disappear into the galactic underground, taking with them the administrative knowledge and resources that will be desperately needed for reconstruction efforts. Mon Mothma finds herself thrust into a role that no amount of political experience could have prepared her for, transforming a military alliance designed for wartime resistance into a governmental structure capable of ruling justly across vast distances and diverse populations. The senator who once debated legislation in the marble halls of Coruscant now must draft the foundational documents of a new republic while managing the competing interests of species and worlds that have very different ideas about democracy and self-governance. The challenges extend far beyond simple political organization into questions of economic reconstruction and social healing that will require generations to fully address. Worlds stripped of their resources to feed imperial war machines must rebuild their industries from nothing. Populations traumatized by decades of oppression must learn to trust in governmental institutions that serve their interests rather than exploiting them for the benefit of distant authorities. Luke Skywalker's role as the galaxy's only trained Jedi places upon his shoulders responsibilities that extend far beyond his personal readiness to bear them. The young man who began this journey as a moisture farmer on Tatooine must now become the architect of a new Jedi Order that learns from the mistakes of its predecessor while preserving the wisdom that made the original guardians of peace and justice effective for thousands of years. His first task involves traveling to worlds where Force-sensitive individuals have hidden their abilities throughout the Imperial era, seeking out those who might become the foundation of a rebuilt order. These potential students range from children who show early signs of force sensitivity to adults who have suppressed their abilities for decades to avoid imperial persecution. The process of rebuilding the Jedi proves far more complex than simply gathering force-sensitive individuals and teaching them to use lightsabers. Luke must develop educational methods that avoid the emotional detachment that contributed to the original Order's downfall, while maintaining the discipline and wisdom necessary to prevent students from falling to the dark side. Princess Leia's transition from military leader to chief of state requires her to balance the competing demands of justice and reconciliation in ways that test every diplomatic skill she has developed during years of rebellion. Former imperial officials who committed atrocities cannot simply be ignored, yet vengeful prosecution of everyone who served the empire would eliminate much of the administrative expertise necessary for governmental reconstruction. Her own force sensitivity adds another dimension to her political responsibilities, as beings throughout the galaxy look to her not just as a leader, but as a symbol of the mystical forces that guided the rebellion to victory. The pressure to live up to such expectations while maintaining her humanity and personal relationships creates stress that few individuals could bear without breaking. Han Solo's adjustment to peacetime proves particularly challenging for someone whose entire adult life has been defined by conflict, whether against imperial forces or the criminal organizations that dominated his youth. The skills that made him invaluable during wartime smuggling and military operations translate poorly to the administrative and diplomatic responsibilities that the New Republic needs him to accept. His relationship with Leia deepens as they discover what their love means in a context where immediate survival is no longer the primary concern. The intensity that sustained them through years of desperate struggle must evolve into something more sustainable for a future that promises decades of peaceful life together. The Bothan spy networks that proved so crucial during the rebellion's intelligence operations face the challenge of transitioning from resistance activities to the legitimate governmental functions that democratic societies require. Their skills in gathering information and infiltrating enemy organizations must be redirected toward protecting the New Republic from criminal threats and separatist movements rather than imperial tyranny. Across the Outer Rim territories, worlds that bore the brunt of imperial exploitation begin the slow process of rebuilding economies devastated by decades of resource extraction and forced labor. The environmental damage alone will require massive restoration efforts that stretch available resources and technical expertise to their limits. The celebration that initially greeted news of the Emperor's death gradually gives way to the sobering recognition that freedom brings with it responsibilities that many populations are unprepared to shoulder. Democratic governance requires active participation from citizens who must learn to think beyond their immediate needs to consider the broader implications of policy decisions. Some worlds that suffered under imperial occupation find themselves facing new challenges from criminal organizations that expand into territories no longer protected by imperial security forces. The New Republic's military, designed for rebellion rather than law enforcement, struggles to adapt its tactics and organization to meet these different threats. The psychological trauma inflicted by decades of authoritarian rule manifests in various ways across different populations. Some beings embrace their newfound freedom with enthusiasm that borders on chaos, while others remain paralyzed by fear that the Empire might somehow return to punish them for celebrating its defeat. Children who grew up knowing only imperial rule must be educated about democratic principles and individual rights that seem almost incomprehensible to minds shaped by propaganda and authoritarian control. The process of re-education requires patience and wisdom that test the New Republic's commitment to its founding principles. Former imperial military personnel face difficult choices about their future roles in galactic society. Some genuinely embrace democratic ideals and seek to contribute their expertise to reconstruction efforts, while others harbor resentment about their defeat and look for opportunities to undermine the new government. The economic disruption caused by the empire's collapse creates opportunities for legitimate businesses to expand into previously controlled markets, but it also enables criminal syndicates to establish themselves in regions where governmental authority remains weak or absent. Religious and cultural movements that were suppressed under imperial rule begin to re-emerge, sometimes creating conflicts between different groups whose traditions and beliefs seem incompatible. The new republic must navigate these tensions while respecting the right of different peoples to maintain their unique identities. As the first year of peace draws to a close, the survivors of the rebellion understand that they have exchanged one set of challenges for another that may prove equally difficult to overcome. The victory they achieved through military force must now be sustained through the more complex and demanding work of building a just society that serves the needs of all its citizens. Yet despite the enormous challenges that lie ahead, there is reason for hope in the dedication and wisdom of those who fought so hard for the chance to face these problems. The same courage and determination that defeated the empire provides the foundation for believing that democracy can ultimately triumph over the forces of chaos and corruption that threaten the galaxy's newfound freedom. The years that follow the Battle of Endor reveal the true scope of the transformation that the rebellion has accomplished, not merely in terms of political structures or military outcomes, but in the fundamental way that beings throughout the galaxy understand their relationship to power, authority, and each other. The generation that grows up in the shadow of the Empire's fall inherits a universe where freedom is not just a distant dream, but a living reality that must be protected and nurtured through conscious choice. Children born on worlds that once trembled beneath Imperial Star Destroyers learn to walk under skies unmarked by the shadow of oppression. Their first words spoken in languages that were once forbidden, their earliest memories filled with the sounds of celebration rather than the mechanical rhythm of marching stormtroopers. These young beings carry within their consciousness the assumption that their voices matter, that their choices have consequences, and that the galaxy belongs to all its inhabitants rather than a privileged few. The New Republic's educational initiatives work to preserve the memory of the dark times while instilling hope for continued progress toward justice and peace. History classes on 1,000 worlds teach students about the senators who risked everything to sign the Petition of 2000, the pilots who flew impossible missions against overwhelming odds, and the ordinary beings who chose to shelter rebels despite the certain knowledge that discovery meant death. Yet, the legacy of rebellion extends far beyond formal education into the realm of cultural transformation that touches every aspect of daily life. Artists who once created only approved propaganda explore themes of individual expression and social criticism that were unthinkable under imperial censorship. Musicians compose symphonies that celebrate diversity rather than demanding conformity, their melodies carrying across star systems the news that beauty can flourish when creativity is freed from authoritarian control. The technological innovations that emerged from the rebellion's necessity to accomplish impossible tasks with limited resources find new applications in peaceful industries that benefit all galactic citizens. The shield generators developed to protect rebel bases become components of weather control systems that shield agricultural worlds from natural disasters. The hyperspace communication networks that coordinated resistance operations evolve into educational systems that share knowledge across vast distances. Mon Mothma's vision of democratic governance faces its greatest tests, not in military conflicts, but in the mundane challenges of taxation, trade regulation, and interspecies diplomacy that determine whether freedom can be sustained through generations of peace. The political institutions she helps create must balance the competing interests of worlds with vastly different cultures, economies, and social structures, while maintaining the unity necessary for effective governance. The philosophical principles that guided the rebellion through its darkest hours become the foundation for legal systems that protect individual rights while preserving social order. Courts throughout the New Republic grapple with questions about the limits of governmental authority and the responsibilities that freedom imposes on those who exercise it. Luke Skywalker's efforts to rebuild the Jedi Order reflect the broader challenge of learning from history without being paralyzed by its mistakes. His students come from diverse backgrounds and species, bringing different perspectives on the Force that enrich the Order's understanding while maintaining its commitment to peace and justice. The new Jedi Academy on Yavin 4 becomes a symbol of hope that wisdom can triumph over ignorance, compassion over hatred. The personal relationships forged in the crucible of war provide stability and continuity as the galaxy adapts to peacetime realities. Han Solo and Princess Leia's marriage represents more than just the union of two individuals. It symbolizes the possibility that love can flourish even in those who have been shaped by conflict and loss. Their children grow up knowing both the price of freedom and the responsibility that such knowledge brings. The veterans of the rebellion find themselves serving as living bridges between the dark past and the hopeful future, their experiences providing guidance for younger generations who have never known tyranny but must understand its dangers. Their stories become part of galactic folklore, inspiring countless beings to choose courage over comfort when faced with moral challenges. Economic prosperity begins to spread throughout regions that were systematically exploited under imperial rule as the New Republic's trade policies prioritize development over extraction. Former slave worlds build industries that serve their own populations rather than distant masters, while technological innovations flow freely between systems that were once isolated by imperial paranoia. The cultural renaissance that follows the empire's fall sees the revival of artistic traditions that were suppressed for decades, along with the emergence of new forms of expression that blend influences from across the galactic spectrum. Festivals celebrating diversity replace imperial ceremonies that demanded uniformity, their colorful displays reflecting the beauty that emerges when different peoples are free to share their unique gifts. Scientific research, freed from the military applications that dominated imperial projects, explores questions about the nature of the Force and its relationship to life throughout the galaxy. Universities on dozens of worlds collaborate on studies that were forbidden under authoritarian rule, their discoveries contributing to a deeper understanding of the cosmic forces that bind all living things together. The environmental restoration of worlds damaged by imperial exploitation becomes both a practical necessity and a symbol of the New Republic's commitment to healing rather than domination. Forests devastated by strip mining begin to regrow, while polluted atmospheres slowly clear as clean technologies replace the crude industrial processes that prioritized efficiency over sustainability. Yet perhaps the most significant aspect of the rebellion's legacy lies in the transformation of how beings throughout the galaxy understand their own potential for heroism. The knowledge that ordinary individuals can change the course of history through acts of conscience and courage becomes embedded in galactic culture, inspiring countless small acts of resistance against injustice that prevent the conditions that allowed the Empire to rise. The memorial sites established on worlds where crucial battles were fought serve not only to honor those who died for freedom, but to remind future generations of the vigilance that democracy requires. The ancient Jedi Temple on Yavin 4, the forests of Endor, where Ewoks and rebels celebrated together, and the ruins of the Death Star itself become pilgrimage destinations for beings seeking to understand the spiritual dimensions of their liberation. The networks of friendship and mutual support that sustained rebel cells through years of desperate struggle evolve into commercial, cultural, and political relationships that bind the galaxy together more effectively than imperial force ever could. Trade partnerships based on mutual benefit replace exploitation, while cultural exchanges celebrate the diversity that tyranny sought to eliminate. The children of rebels grow up, understanding that freedom is not a passive condition, but an active responsibility that requires constant effort to maintain. They learn that democracy depends not on the wisdom of leaders, but on the participation of citizens who take seriously their role in shaping their society's future. As the new republic matures from revolutionary movement into stable government, the principles that guided the rebellion continue to influence policy decisions and cultural developments. The belief that all beings possess inherent dignity and the right to determine their own destinies becomes the foundation for institutions that serve justice rather than power. The legacy of rebellion thus extends far beyond the political and military achievements that toppled the empire into the realm of spiritual transformation that touches every aspect of galactic civilization. The whisper that began in Senate corridors has become a permanent part of the galaxy's consciousness, ensuring that future generations will remember both the price of freedom and the eternal vigilance required to preserve it. The peace that settles over the galaxy in the decades following the Empire's defeat carries within it the seeds of complacency that allows old evils to take root in new forms. In the unknown regions, beyond the reach of New Republic surveillance and patrol fleets, Imperial remnants gather around leaders whose hatred for democracy burns with undiminished intensity despite their military defeat. The First Order emerges from these hidden strongholds not as a pale imitation of the Empire, but as its purified essence, stripped of the inefficiencies and political compromises that its leaders believe contributed to Palpatine's downfall. Under the guidance of Supreme Leader Snoke, these neo-imperial forces develop technologies and tactics that surpass their predecessors while embracing an ideology even more ruthless in its pursuit of absolute control. General Leia Organa, now a seasoned leader whose hair bears silver streaks that speak of decades spent in service to galactic freedom, finds herself watching with growing alarm as the New Republic's political institutions grow increasingly paralyzed by the very democracy they were created to preserve. The Senate, that once provided unity against imperial tyranny, now fragments into factions more concerned with local interests than galactic security. Her warnings about First Order activities in the unknown regions fall on ears deafened by the prosperity and peace that most citizens have come to take for granted. The generation that fought against the Empire has aged into elder statesmanship, while their children and grandchildren struggle to comprehend threats that seem distant and abstract compared to the immediate concerns of trade disputes and resource allocation. Luke Skywalker's self-imposed exile, following the tragedy at his Jedi Academy, reflects the broader challenge facing those who remember the cost of freedom, but find themselves unable to prevent its gradual erosion. His nephew's fall to the dark side, seduced by the same promises of power that corrupted Anakin Skywalker generations earlier, demonstrates that the eternal struggle between light and darkness continues even when its participants change. The destruction of Luke's carefully rebuilt Jedi Order by Ben Solo, now calling himself Kylo Ren, eliminates the galaxy's primary defense against dark-side influence, just as new threats begin to emerge from the shadows. The students who survived the massacre scatter across the galaxy, some hiding their abilities, while others seek revenge against the master they blame for failing to protect them. Han Solo's return to smuggling represents more than just personal restlessness. It reflects the broader difficulty that many rebellion veterans experience in adapting to peacetime realities that seem mundane compared to the epic struggles of their youth. His separation from Leia, though painful for both, stems from fundamental differences in how they process the loss of their son to the darkness they spent their lives fighting. The First Order's military capabilities, revealed during their assault on the Hosnian system, demonstrate technological advances that surpass even the Death Star's destructive potential. Starkiller Base, a weapon carved from an entire planet, represents the ultimate expression of the dark side's hunger for domination through fear and intimidation. Yet, the destruction of multiple worlds with a single weapon serves a purpose beyond mere military advantage. It announces to the galaxy that the lessons of the Empire's fall have been studied and absorbed by enemies who believe they can avoid their predecessors' mistakes. The First Order's leadership understands that the New Republic's greatest weakness lies not in military vulnerability but in political complacency. The resistance that forms around Leia's leadership consists largely of veterans from the old rebellion who recognize the threat that younger politicians dismiss as manageable regional terrorism. Their small fleet and limited resources echo the desperate circumstances that characterized the early alliance, but their experience provides advantages that the original rebels lacked. Poe Dameron's capture and interrogation by Kylo Ren reveals the extent to which the First Order has learned from Imperial intelligence failures. Their methods combine technological sophistication with dark side techniques that make resistance exponentially more difficult than the relatively straightforward torture methods employed by their predecessors. The defection of FN 2187, later known as Finn, demonstrates that even the First Order's sophisticated indoctrination programs cannot completely eliminate individual conscience and the capacity for moral choice. His escape with Poe reflects the same kind of unlikely alliances that sustained the original rebellion through its darkest hours. Rey's awakening to the Force on Jakku provides hope that the galaxy has not been abandoned by the mystical energies that once guided the Jedi in their role as guardians of peace and justice. Her natural abilities, seemingly enhanced by the urgency of galactic crisis, suggest that the Force itself continues to seek balance between light and darkness. The revelation that Supreme Leader Snoke has been manipulating events from behind the scenes, corrupting Ben Solo and orchestrating the First Order's rise, adds a dimension of cosmic horror to what might otherwise be seen as merely political conflict. His mastery of dark side techniques that surpass even Palpatine's abilities represents a new level of threat to galactic freedom. Ben Solo's internal conflict between the light and dark sides of his nature reflects the broader struggle within galactic civilization between the democratic values inherited from the rebellion and the authoritarian impulses that never completely disappeared after the Empire's fall. His uncertainty about his chosen path provides opportunities for redemption that echo his grandfather's ultimate sacrifice. The destruction of the New Republic's capital fleet and government infrastructure forces the galaxy to confront the reality that peace cannot be maintained through wishful thinking and political compromise alone. The institutions that seemed so stable and permanent prove as vulnerable to determined attack as the Empire once was to rebel assault. Leia's leadership of the Resistance demonstrates that the principles and tactics that once defeated the Empire remain relevant when facing new manifestations of the same fundamental evil. Her ability to inspire loyalty and coordinate Resistance operations draws upon decades of experience while adapting to new circumstances and technologies. The cycle that brings new heroes to prominence in each generation reflects the Force's apparent determination to maintain balance in the galaxy, regardless of the specific individuals involved. Rey, Finn, and Poe represent the emergence of a new generation willing to sacrifice for freedom, even though they lack the personal memories of Imperial oppression that motivated their predecessors. As the First Order consolidates its control over core world systems and the Resistance struggles to maintain operational capability, the galaxy finds itself facing familiar questions about the relationship between order and freedom, security and liberty. The choices made by ordinary beings in extraordinary circumstances will once again determine whether democracy can survive against forces that view diversity and individual rights as obstacles to efficient governance. The pattern established by the original rebellion continues to repeat as new threats emerge to test each generation's commitment to the principles that freedom requires. The eternal vigilance that democracy demands cannot be delegated to institutions or leaders, but must be exercised by citizens willing to pay freedom's price when the need arises. The final confrontation between the Resistance and the First Order unfolds across multiple theaters of engagement that echo the patterns established by the rebellion decades earlier. Yet the stakes have evolved beyond mere political control into questions about the fundamental nature of the Force and its role in galactic destiny. Reza's journey to the hidden Sith world of Exegol reveals the true scope of the threat facing the galaxy, as Emperor Palpatine's survival through dark side manipulation demonstrates that evil's capacity for resurrection matches its hunger for domination. The revelation that Palpatine has been manipulating events from beyond death, using Snoke as his puppet, while building a fleet capable of destroying entire star systems, transforms the conflict from a struggle between competing political philosophies into a cosmic battle between creation and destruction. His final order represents not just renewed imperial ambition, but the dark side's ultimate expression of its desire to consume all life in the galaxy. Rey's discovery of her heritage as Palpatine's granddaughter forces her to confront the same questions about bloodline and destiny that tormented Luke Skywalker when he learned Vader's identity. Yet her response demonstrates how wisdom passed between generations allows each to build upon the sacrifices of those who came before, choosing love over fear despite the dark legacy she carries. Ben Solo's redemption through his mother's final sacrifice, and Rey's compassionate refusal to destroy him completes the cycle of healing that began with Anakin Skywalker's return to the light. His choice to give his life force to save Rey proves that the Skywalker legacy ultimately serves the cause of life rather than death, hope rather than despair. The fleet of ordinary citizens that answers Lando Calrissian's call for help demonstrates how the rebellion's example has inspired beings throughout the galaxy to understand their own capacity for heroism. These are not professional military personnel or trained rebels, but farmers, merchants, teachers, and workers who choose to risk everything for the chance to preserve freedom for their children. Their arrival at Exegol in ships ranging from ancient freighters to modern cruisers reflects the diversity that has always been the galaxy's greatest strength against authoritarian forces that seek to impose uniformity. The sight of thousands of vessels converging on the hidden Sith stronghold proves that tyranny cannot ultimately triumph when ordinary beings unite in defense of their common values. Rey's confrontation with Palpatine requires her to channel the wisdom of all the Jedi who came before her, their voices providing guidance through the Force as she faces a power that has corrupted the galaxy for generations. Her sacrifice to destroy the Emperor once and for all demonstrates that some victories can only be achieved through complete selflessness. The destruction of the Final Order fleet and the Emperor's permanent defeat send shock waves through the dark side of the Force that liberate countless worlds from tyrannical rule simultaneously. On Coruscant, citizens tear down First Order monuments with the same joy their predecessors showed when the Empire fell. Across the galaxy, oppressed populations celebrate the return of hope to their daily lives. Finn's leadership of the ground assault on Exegol showcases how former enemies can become powerful allies when they choose to serve justice rather than power. His ability to inspire other reformed stormtroopers demonstrates that no indoctrination can completely eliminate the capacity for moral choice and personal growth. Poe Dameron's coordination of the space battle above Exegol reflects the tactical innovations that each generation of rebels has contributed to the ongoing struggle for galactic freedom. His leadership brings together veterans of the old rebellion with young pilots who have known only the fight against the First Order, creating unity across generational lines. The Force dyad between Rey and Ben represents a new understanding of how the light and dark sides can achieve balance, not through constant conflict, but through the recognition that all beings carry the potential for both creation and destruction. Their connection transcends the traditional boundaries between Jedi and Sith into something that honors both passion and peace. Leia's legacy, as the bridge between the original rebellion and the final victory over the Sith, demonstrates how leadership can transcend individual mortality when it inspires others to carry forward the principles that define just governance. Her influence continues to guide the Resistance even after her death, proving that some spirits never truly fade from the galaxy. The restoration of democracy throughout the galaxy represents more than just political change. It embodies the triumph of the values that began with those first whispered conversations in Senate corridors decades earlier. The cycle that brought the Sith to power through manipulation and deception has finally been broken through the willing sacrifice of those who chose light over darkness. Reti's decision to take the Skywalker name while burying the lightsabers of Luke and Leia on Tatooine creates a symbolic conclusion to the saga that began when young Anakin Skywalker first left that desert world. The twin suns that witnessed his departure now shine upon the burial site of the weapons that defended the galaxy through its darkest hours. The celebration that spreads across the galaxy as news of final victory reaches every populated system reflects not just relief at the end of conflict, but joy at the vindication of the belief that good ultimately triumphs over evil when beings of conscience unite in common cause. Children who have never known peace finally experience the security their parents fought to provide. The new Jedi Order that emerges from the ashes of the old will carry forward the wisdom gained through generations of struggle, understanding that power must always serve justice rather than seeking dominance for its own sake. The balance achieved through Rey and Ben's sacrifice provides a foundation for Force users who embrace both emotion and serenity. The political institutions that arise from the First Order's defeat benefit from the hard-earned knowledge of previous attempts at democratic governance, incorporating safeguards against the complacency and corruption that allowed tyranny to return. The galaxy's new constitution reflects the understanding that freedom requires eternal vigilance and active participation from all citizens. As peace settles over star systems that have known primarily conflict for generations, the survivors understand that they have participated in events that transcended mere political struggle into the realm of cosmic significance. The rebellion that began with whispered conversations has culminated in the permanent defeat of forces that threatened to extinguish hope throughout the galaxy. The Force itself seems to celebrate this victory, its energies flowing more freely through the galaxy as the artificial imbalance created by Sith domination finally ends. Sensitive beings across countless worlds feel the change as a lifting of oppression they may not have consciously recognized, but that had weighed upon their spirits for decades. The final victory represents not just the end of a particular conflict, but the resolution of the fundamental question that has driven galactic history since the first beings began to choose between selfishness and service, fear and love, tyranny and freedom. The answer, written in the sacrifices of heroes across multiple generations, affirms that light ultimately triumphs over darkness when ordinary beings choose to become extraordinary through acts of courage and compassion. The galaxy settles into the deepest peace it has known for generations, a tranquility that extends beyond the mere absence of war into the profound stillness that comes when ancient conflicts finally find their resolution. Across countless star systems, beings who have known only struggle and uncertainty for decades experience the gentle blessing of waking each morning without fear, their children playing beneath skies unmarked by the shadow of oppression. On distant worlds where the scars of battle have begun to heal beneath the patient ministrations of time and nature, forests grow tall once more over the ruins of imperial installations. Flowers bloom in meadows where stormtroopers once marched, their bright colors a testament to life's irrepressible determination to flourish wherever darkness retreats. The ancient rhythms of seasons and cycles reclaim their dominance over landscapes that technology once sought to dominate. The twin suns of Tatooine cast their eternal light across dunes that have witnessed the beginning and ending of legends, their amber glow warming the simple grave markers where lightsabers rest beneath the sand. Here, where the saga began with a young boy's dreams of adventure among the stars, the circle completes itself in quiet dignity, reminding all who visit that even the greatest heroes return to the same dust from which all life emerges. Across the galaxy's spiral arms, new traditions take root in the fertile soil of freedom as beings discover what their cultures can become when allowed to flourish without suppression. Music flows between star systems, carrying melodies that blend the ancient wisdom of countless species with the joy of liberation. Art galleries display works that would have been forbidden under authoritarian rule, their colors bright with the hope that springs from creative expression unshackled from fear. Children who will never know the weight of tyranny learn their histories not as distant legends, but as living truths that shape their understanding of the responsibility that freedom brings. They play games that celebrate the heroes of the rebellion, while understanding that heroism lives not in grand gestures alone, but in the daily choice to serve others rather than oneself. The Force flows through the galaxy with a serenity that speaks of balance finally achieved, its currents no longer distorted by the artificial dominance of dark side manipulation. Those sensitive to its touch feel the cosmic harmony that emerges when creation and destruction, growth and decay, birth and death find their natural equilibrium in the endless dance of existence. On worlds where former enemies now work together to rebuild what war destroyed, the practical magic of reconciliation transforms old hatreds into new understanding. The children of rebels and the children of imperial soldiers attend the same schools, their friendships proving that the divisions that once seemed permanent were merely the temporary madness of adults who forgot their common humanity. Trade routes that once carried the instruments of oppression now bear the fruits of cooperation, as merchants travel freely between systems whose diversity enriches all who participate in the galaxy's renewed community. The innovations born from necessity during years of desperate struggle find peaceful applications that benefit every world willing to embrace progress over tradition, hope over fear. In the quiet moments when the galaxy pauses to remember those who paid freedom's price, their voices seem to whisper on solar winds that carry their memory across the void. The senators who risked everything for democracy, the pilots who flew impossible missions, the ordinary beings who chose extraordinary courage all live on in the peace their sacrifices purchased. The stars themselves seem to shine more brightly now, their light no longer struggling against the darkness that once threatened to consume all hope. Across the infinite depths of space, their ancient patterns tell stories of renewal and redemption to any who have eyes to see and hearts to understand. As you drift into the gentle embrace of sleep, carried by this tale of courage and sacrifice, know that somewhere among those distant stars, peace reigns eternal. The whisper that began in Senate corridors has become the galaxy's lullaby, a song of hope that will endure as long as beings choose love over fear, unity over division, light over darkness. May your dreams be filled with the same hope that guided heroes across the generations, and may you wake tomorrow with the understanding that every choice you make echoes across the universe, adding your voice to the eternal song of those who refuse to let darkness have the final word. Rest now, fellow traveler among the stars, knowing that the galaxy sleeps safely tonight because ordinary beings chose to become extraordinary when the need was greatest. Their legacy lives on in every act of kindness, every moment of courage, every choice to serve the light. Sweet dreams, and may the Force be with you, always.